Chapter 41. Peter's offer, Jacob's warning. The next day, Jacob woke up early and went to check on Styles. He opened the guest room door and found Styles hugging a pillow, humping it and kissing it while mumbling gibberish. Jacob smirked, pulled out his phone, and started recording. After getting enough footage, he put the phone away, walked over, and smacked Styles on the head. "Wake up, Styles." Styles jerked awake, blinking at him. "Jacob, why are you here?" He looked around frantically. "Wait, where's the girl I was just kissing?" Jacob pointed at the pillow. "You mean her?" Styles froze. "What? You were kissing the pillow. And if I hadn't woken you up, I think that poor pillow would have gone through more than just kissing." Styles groaned, collapsing back onto the bed. "Did you have to wake me up and ruin my beautiful dream?" "Get up," Jacob said. "We're going to the backyard to spar. You need to control your new strength." Styles sat up, alarmed. "What? Spar with you? No thanks. I saw what you did to Scott when you trained him." Jacob ignored him, grabbed him by the back of the neck, and dragged him toward the backyard. "Stop complaining," Jacob said. "You've got rapid healing now, so even if I beat you, you'll be fine." "Actually, I don't even need your help," Styles argued, still trying to resist. "I'm already in control of my strength." Jacob didn't listen. He kept dragging him while Styles whined for mercy. After an hour of sparring, Styles was sprawled across the grass, bruised and exhausted, but his wounds were already healing fast. Jacob smirked down at him. "Okay. Training complete. You're now in full control. No need to thank me." "Thank you." Styles groaned. "I don't want to thank you, I want to beat your ass." Jacob grinned evilly. "You know what? I think you still need more training." Styles bolted upright. "No, no, no. I don't need more training. Thank you very much." Jacob laughed and headed back toward the mansion. "Come on, let's get ready for school." Styles quickly caught up, walking beside him. "By the way, thanks for the potion. I really mean it. Now I can actually protect myself, or at least run away from danger without being a liability to you and Scott." "You're welcome," Jacob said casually. "So, how much did that potion cost?" Jacob raised a brow. "You planning on repaying me?" "Nope," Styles said honestly. "I just know something like that has to be expensive, and I definitely couldn't afford it." "Then why ask?" "Curiosity." Styles shrugged. Jacob sighed. "You don't need to know how much it cost. I gave it to you because we're friends. That's all." Styles smirked, then put on his best coquettish look and spoke in a high-pitched voice. "I'm so touched, I could kiss you right now." Jacob shuddered, goosebumps running down his arms. "Ah, that was disgusting, Styles." He kicked him away. "I'm never giving you anything again, you creepy bastard." Styles rolled on the ground, laughing, then scrambled up and clung to Jacob's leg. "I was joking. Don't say that. If you get anything good in the future, please remember me." Jacob kicked him off again. "Stay away from me, man." He went inside to shower, while Styles just smirked to himself and headed toward the guest bathroom. After breakfast, Jacob and Styles stepped out of the mansion. Styles looked at the sleek silver car parked in the driveway. "When did you get this?" he asked. "2 days ago." Jacob replied casually. Styles walked around it in awe. "Is it a Rolls-Royce Ghost or Phantom?" "It's a Rolls-Royce Ghost. You bought a $250,000 car." Styles gawked. "Are you going to drive it to school?" Jacob smirked. "For now, no. I'll take the Camaro." "You sure? Showing up in this will make you extremely popular." "I don't care about popularity, Styles. Besides, even without the car, I'm already popular." Styles groaned. "True. Every girl in school is attracted to you, and most of the guys hate your guts." Jacob chuckled. "If you want, you can drive it to school." Styles shook his head quickly. "No thanks. My Jeep may be old, but it's enough for me." With that, they each got into their cars and drove to school. When they arrived, they met up with Scott, Allison, and Lydia. Styles grinned and shook Scott's hand, but he didn't let go, he started squeezing. At first, Scott smirked, but his expression changed as Styles' grip grew stronger. His eyes glowed faintly as he nearly shifted to keep Styles from crushing his hand. "What's going on?" Scott yanked his hand back, shaking it. Styles smirked. "So, if you don't shift, I'm stronger than you." "Really?" Lydia asked, surprised. "Didn't Jay tell you?" Allison chimed in. "We're as strong as betas when they're fully shifted. So of course Styles is stronger than Scott in his normal state." Scott blinked between them. Wait, why is Styles suddenly strong? And, are you two the same?" He pointed at Allison and Lydia. Styles grinned. Jacob gave us a magical potion, and now we're as strong as you. No side effects. Scott's jaw dropped. That's not fair. While I'm constantly worrying about losing control and turning into a monster, you three get the same strength without any of that. Jacob clapped him on the back. Look at the bright side, now you can beat Styles up as much as you want, and he'll heal fast. Scott frowned. But he's as strong as me now. I'm not sure I can beat him. You've got claws and he doesn't. Jacob said calmly. Besides, when you become an alpha, you'll surpass him easily. Scott nodded slowly. Yeah, but to become an alpha, I'd have to kill one. There's another way. Jacob said. Allison tilted her head. What do you mean? There's a rare kind of alpha who doesn't have to kill or steal power, he rises to alpha status by sheer willpower. They're called true alphas. Jacob put a hand on Scott's shoulder. And Scott, I believe you can be one. Scott's eyes widened, then said. Thanks. I'll try. I really don't want to kill anyone. But, that potion, can I drink it too? Jacob shook his head. Unfortunately, no. It doesn't work on supernatural creatures. Figures. Scott sighed. Jacob smirked. But hey, I do have something you'll enjoy. He pulled out his phone and played a video. On screen, Styles was hugging, kissing, and humping a pillow in his sleep. Scott froze, then he and Jacob looked at each other and burst out laughing together. You have to send me this video. Scott wheezed. What's so funny? Styles asked nervously. Show me. Nope. Jacob said, handing the phone to Allison and Lydia instead. The two girls watched the clip, and instantly burst into uncontrollable laughter, glancing at Styles with tears in their eyes. Styles looked at Scott nervously. The video's about me, isn't it? Scott was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Yeah. Styles squinted. What is it, Jacob beating me up this morning? Lydia shook her head, smirking. Nope. It's you humping and kissing a pillow. Styles froze. What? No way. Show me. Lydia turned the phone toward him, and Styles' face went red instantly. Damn it, this is social death. He glared at Jacob. That's it, I'm fighting you for this. Jacob cracked his knuckles with a grin. You sure about that? Styles remembered the very painful sparring session earlier that morning. He quickly backed down. Damn it. Then, out of frustration, he smacked Scott hard on the back of the head. Scott growled and turned toward him. Sorry. Styles said quickly. I was just, trying to kill a fly. Then he made a desperate attempt to snatch the phone from Lydia, but she darted away and handed it back to Jacob. Jacob pocketed the phone with a smug grin. Styles cursed under his breath, then smacked Scott on the back of the head again. Scott shot him an angry glare. Oops. Styles bolted, sprinting inside the school, with an enraged Scott chasing right after him. A few days passed quickly. Jacob took both Lydia and Allison on dates, spent time hanging out with Scott and Styles, and the rest of his free hours were spent gaming or relaxing at home. By Friday morning, Jacob, Scott, Allison, Lydia, and Styles were sitting on the lacrosse field bleachers during a free period, chatting and laughing. That's when Derek and Peter appeared, striding toward them. Styles frowned. Why are you two here? And why are you together? Allison glanced at Jacob. Who are they? Derek and Peter hail. Jacob said calmly. Which one's the alpha? Allison asked. Peter gave a sly smirk. That would be me, little huntress. Scott frowned at Derek. Weren't you trying to kill him for murdering your sister? Derek shrugged. He lost control and killed her by accident. Besides, he's stronger than me. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't kill him. Peter stepped closer, eyes gleaming. Scott, join me. Together we'd be unstoppable, and I can protect you. Scott narrowed his eyes. Protect me. From who? You. Peter pointed toward Allison. From her family. Scott's expression hardened. I don't need your protection. And her family isn't looking for me, they're hunting the monster killing people in town. That means you. Peter shook his head slowly. I'm not a murderer, Scott. Those people deserve to die. Let me show you. Before Scott could react, Peter blurred forward, his claws sinking into the back of his neck. Scott stiffened, his eyes wide, as Peter forced his memories into him. A moment later, Peter withdrew his claws and stepped back. Scott collapsed to the ground, convulsing. Scott. Styles panicked. What did you do to him? Jacob stayed calm. Relax, Styles. He just shared a memory with him. After a few tense moments, Scott sat up, clutching the back of his neck, his eyes glowing faintly as he glared at Peter with fury. Peter smirked. Now you see. That night, They trapped us, burned us alive. And not all of us were shapeshifters. There were children that night. Human children. And they killed them too. His eyes flared red. That's why I'll kill every last one of them. Jacob, who had been sitting quietly between Allison and Lydia, finally stood. He stretched, then released his dragon aura. Though it was directed solely at Peter, both Derek and Scott felt the crushing weight of fear press down on them. Jacob walked forward slowly, his aura coiling around Peter like a predator's gaze. Peter swallowed, forcing a smile, but inside he cursed. Damn it. This stupid kid, he's even stronger than the last time we fought. Way stronger. He swallowed and forced a calm voice. I didn't hurt him. I simply invited him to join my pack, and shared a memory with him. That's all. Jacob's eyes glowed gold. You know what you did wrong, Peter. Peter instinctively took a step back. No. Jacob closed the distance, resting a hand on Peter's shoulder. His tone was cold. First, you came here acting tough without even acknowledging me. Second, and far more important, I didn't like the way you were looking at Allison. Jacob's claws dug into Peter's shoulder. Peter growled, grabbing Jacob's wrist and trying to wrench it free, but Jacob's hand didn't budge an inch. Fur began sprouting across Peter's body as he tried to shift, but Jacob said in a calm, cold voice. If you don't want to lose your shoulder, I suggest you stop shifting. Peter froze, halting his transformation, his red eyes glowing as he glared at Jacob. Jacob dug his claws in deeper, forcing Peter to his knees. Tell me, Peter. Do you think I wouldn't dare kill you? Peter remained silent, glaring up at him. Jacob released his full dragon aura. This time, Peter's defiance cracked. His chest tightened, his instincts screamed, and when his eyes met Jacob's, he felt as though he was staring into the gaze of an ancient beast. A fear deeper than instinct rattled him to the core. Jacob said, when you see me next time, you should act like the weak mutt you are. Peter trembled. What are you? Jacob's golden eyes burned. Something very dangerous. Vengeful. Ruthless when provoked. But more importantly, I am a proud creature. When you ignored me, you wounded my pride. And this, he smirked, is a little punishment. Electricity crackled down Jacob's arm, surging through his claws into Peter's shoulder. Peter's body convulsed violently, smoke escaping from his mouth as electricity coursed through him. With a final jolt, Jacob released him, letting Peter collapse to the ground, twitching and smoking. Styles' eyes widened. That was awesome. He shook Scott's shoulder eagerly. Did you see that? Jacob just used lightning magic. But then Styles frowned. Scott was trembling. Scott, what's wrong with you? Lydia crossed her arms. You just noticed. Both Scott and Derek are terrified of Jacob. Styles turned toward Derek, and froze. Derek was shaking too, staring at Jacob in absolute horror. Scott, wake up. Styles slapped him lightly. Scott flinched back to his senses, still trembling. You guys don't feel it, but Jacob is terrifying right now. I can't even stop my body from shaking. Jacob sighed, pulling his aura back and scratching the back of his head. Sorry about that. Peter ignoring me, hurt my pride, and I might have gotten a little carried away. Scott let out a shaky breath of relief the moment the oppressive fear lifted. What was that anyway? You suddenly became terrifying. You did it back in the woods too, the night you killed that creepy creature. Jacob said. That was my aura. You'll be able to use yours one day, when you're strong enough. Scott frowned. Aura. Jacob thought for a moment. It's like an invisible energy that leaks out from you. You can release it to intimidate or scare off weaker creatures. The stronger you get, the stronger your aura becomes. Scott asked. So, I have one too. Of course. Jacob said. Tell me, when you first became a werewolf, did animals act strange around you? Scott's eyes widened. Yeah. The first time I went into the animal clinic after I was bitten, every dog and cat went crazy. But after a while, they got used to me. Jacob said. Maybe you're subconsciously restraining your aura, that's why they stopped going crazy every time you entered the clinic. Anyway, when a creature's aura becomes strong enough, it can paralyze enemies with fear. Sometimes it can even shatter glass, or maybe do even more. Styles said. By the way, Jacob. You didn't tell us you can use lightning magic. Jacob smirked. I can do more than that. What? Styles pressed. Tell me, what else can you do? Jacob shook his head. Maybe another time. He turned, gave Peter a kick, and said. Stop pretending to be dead. Get up and tell me why you're here. Peter groaned, stood, and brushed himself off. He didn't even dare glare at Jacob. Instead, he forced a smile as if nothing had happened. I'm here for a teacher. Adrian Harris. He knows who orchestrated the fire that burned my family alive. Jacob raised a brow. Harris. Fine. Go. Just, don't make it too bloody when you kill him. Peter tilted his head. You're not going to stop me. Nope. Jacob said casually. I hate that guy. Allison frowned. Jay, you can't let him kill Harris. Styles nodded quickly. Yeah, as much as I hate Harris, I don't want him dead. Jacob sighed. Fine. Peter, interrogate him, then scare him enough to leave Beacon Hills for good. Peter smirked. All right. I'll come back after the school day ends. With that, Peter left. Derek lingered a moment, silently watching Jacob. Jacob could help me kill Peter, help me become an alpha. But I already owe him for saving my life. If I want his help, I'll have to offer him something he actually wants. He nodded stiffly to Jacob and the others before following Peter. For now, I'll use Peter to get revenge for my mother, for my family first. Once the two were gone, Jacob glanced in another direction, and spotted Jackson peeking from behind a wall. Jackson's eyes widened. He quickly ducked out of sight. Jacob just smirked and said nothing. He sat back down beside Allison and Lydia. By the way, guys, I bought something cool from my crazy scientist friend again. Allison raised a brow. Did he make something new? What is it? Jacob shook his head. No, this isn't something he made. It's an old summoning scroll he found by chance, and sold it to me. Styles leaned forward. And what exactly does the scroll summon? Jacob shrugged. No idea. We'll find out tomorrow. Styles blinked. What if you summon something evil? Jacob smirked. Then I'll kill it. And what if you can't kill it? Styles shot back. Jacob rolled his eyes. And what if you shut up? If you're scared, don't come. Styles crossed his arms. No way. I'm definitely coming. I can't miss the chance to witness summoning magic. He paused, narrowing his eyes at Jacob. You know exactly what kind of creature you are, don't you? Jacob was silent for a moment before answering. Yes. But I can't tell you yet. There are creatures who can read memories. If I told you what I am, and they read your minds, they will try anything to kill me or catch me, and I'm not strong enough to protect myself yet. Styles nodded slowly. All right. You can tell us when you're ready. Chapter 42. Arrival of the Butler. Saturday morning, Jacob woke up at 9. After taking a shower, he went down to the kitchen and pulled out a variety of baked goods from his pocket dimension, croissants, cinnamon rolls, brownies, chocolate chip cookies, and placed them neatly on the table. He quickly scrambled some eggs, made hot chocolate milk, and then sat down to wait for Allison, Lydia, Scott, and Styles. While waiting, he said in his mind, System, sign in. Daily sign in successful. Rewards obtained. $5. Century eggs times 30. Harley Quinn's panties. Still warm, she just took them off. Jacob read through the list. $5, well, better than nothing. Century eggs, Chinese black rotten eggs, disgusting. Definitely getting rid of those. Then he read the last reward. His face darkened. Without a word, he walked out to the backyard, threw Harley Quinn's panties out of his dimensional pocket without touching them, and burned them to ash with his fire ability before they even touched the ground. Disgusting. He muttered. Remembering the century eggs, he sighed. Might as well burn those too. He took them out, incinerated them, and went back inside to sit at the kitchen table, casually scrolling through his phone. Half an hour later, Lydia and Allison arrived in Lydia's car, while Styles and Scott came in Styles's Jeep. Allison opened the gate for them, and once both cars were parked in the driveway, Scott closed it behind them. Allison was the first to enter the mansion. She headed straight to the kitchen, smiled, and said, "Good morning," before giving Jacob a kiss. She was about to sit next to him when Jacob smirked, pulled her into his lap, and they started making out. They only stopped when they heard Lydia and the others enter the kitchen. Allison quickly slid off Jacob's lap and sat properly beside him, her cheeks red. Lydia narrowed her eyes at Allison but kept quiet. Instead, she walked over to Jacob, gave him a deep kiss of her own, and sat down on his other side. Morning. Styles and Scott greeted as they walked in, sitting across the table. All right, let's eat. I'm starving, Jacob said, already digging in. I'm surprised you actually waited for us, Styles remarked. I wasn't waiting for you idiots, Jacob said between bites. I was waiting for my ladies. Honestly, I was hoping you and Scott wouldn't show up until after we finished eating. That's hurtful, Styles said dramatically. Scott, let's not eat his food. Scott gave him a look. I'm hungry. You didn't even let me have breakfast at home. If you don't want to eat, that's on you, but I'm eating. Scott immediately grabbed a plate. Styles huffed, then grabbed a brownie, stuffed it into his mouth, and said while chewing. Man, you have no dignity. Says the guy who just said he wouldn't eat Jacob's food a second ago, and now you're shoving a brownie down your throat. Lydia shot back. Styles shrugged. Everyone knows I'm shameless. He got up, went to the fridge, and pulled out a few bottles of juice. Anyone want juice? Lydia said. Give me a bottle of orange juice, one with no added sugar. Same. Allison added. Styles handed out the bottles, sat back down, and joined in the feast. By the time they were done, most of the food was gone, mostly eaten by Jacob. After the kitchen was cleaned, Styles leaned back in his chair and grinned. So, can we finally see this summoning magic? Jacob smirked. Sure. Wait here, I'll grab the scroll. He ran upstairs, retrieved the summoning scroll from his pocket dimension, and came back down. Alright, let's go to the backyard. As they walked toward the backyard, Allison glanced at Jacob. By the way, Jay, what if you summon something dangerous? Jacob smirked. Don't worry. Whatever I summon will be loyal to me. The scroll works like a contract between me and the summoned being. Allison let out a small sigh of relief. Good. That makes me feel better. So, Styles rubbed his hands together. What do you guys think the scroll will summon? I just hope it's nothing creepy. Lydia muttered. Creepy. Styles grinned. It could be a demon. Or some kind of monster. Or, a fairy. Allison blinked. A fairy. Yeah. Tiny humanoid creature, wings, magic dust, all that. Scott frowned. Are those even real? Styles scoffed. You're a werewolf, Scott. And you're real. He then leaned toward Allison and Lydia with a mischievous grin. But what if Jacob summons a female demon known for her beauty and charm? The kind that can control men, the succubus. Lydia's eyes narrowed. Jay, you're not summoning a succubus, are you? Jacob raised an eyebrow. I don't know. Allison crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes too. Are you sure you don't know? Yes, I'm sure. Jacob said firmly. And it's probably not a succubus. Then he turned to glare at Styles, who was smirking. You better be ready, because whatever I summon, I will order it to attack you. Styles raised his hands. Hey, you can't do that. I was just guessing. Jacob ignored him. Once they reached the backyard, he stepped ahead of the group and looked back. All right, guys. You ready? Styles's face lit up with excitement. Yes. Go ahead, but, please don't order it to attack me. Jacob smirked, then asked the system in his mind. System, how do I use the scroll? Just open it and throw it on the ground while thinking of summoning Cogman. Jacob unrolled the scroll and tossed it forward. It glowed instantly, the air splitting open as a space crack formed. A blinding flash of light forced Jacob to shield his eyes and step back. When the crack sealed and the light faded, two things stood before them. The first was a sleek, human-like robot, about 1.6 meters tall, its two glowing blue eyes piercing through the air. The second was a silver Aston Martin DB9. Styles's jaw dropped. It's a freaking robot. Jacob shook his head. Not just a robot, Styles. That's a transformer. Styles spun toward him. A transformer. Like Optimus Prime. Bumblebee. Exactly. His name is Cogman. Jacob explained. He's a Cybertronian, a species of autonomous robotic life forms. That's what I learned the moment I summoned him. Styles stood frozen, staring at Cogman in shock. Allison's eyes widened. Wait, if Transformers are real, does that mean they're going to invade our world like in the movies? Jacob shook his head. No. Cogman came from another universe. I don't think there are any other Transformers here besides him. Anyway, let me talk to him first. Jacob stepped forward. Hey, Cogman, can you understand me? The robot, who seemed to have been in a daze, snapped to attention. His glowing eyes focused on Jacob and his friends, then back on Jacob. When he spoke, his voice carried a crisp British accent. You must be Jacob Alexander. My new master. Jacob nodded. That's me. Cogman bowed elegantly. Cogman, at your service, my lord. Don't call me my lord. Jacob frowned. Call me Jacob or sir. Very well, sir. Cogman said with a nod. Jacob pointed at the Aston Martin. And, what's with the car? Cogman puffed out his metal chest with pride. Ah, my better 3/4. A necessary division, sir. To perform the delicate duties of a butler, pouring tea, polishing silver, discreetly disposing of dead bodies, one requires a small and nimble form. But a true butler must also be capable of grander services, high-speed chases, dramatic arrivals, heat and runs. The car is the rest of my body, sir. It is, if you will, my business suit. Jacob tilted his head at the Aston Martin. So, you can merge with it and turn into a giant transformer. Cogman nodded. Yes, sir. Jacob grinned. Do it. I want to see. As you wish, sir. Cogman walked over to the car, his body unfolding and merging with it. With metallic clicks, whirs, and grinding gears, the two fused into one. In moments, Cogman towered above them, an 8-meter-tall transformer. Jacob, Styles, and Scott all shouted at the same time. Cool. Allison and Lydia, however, just stood frozen, staring wide-eyed. Jacob stepped forward eagerly. Cogman, punch me. Cogman tilted his head, confused. I beg your pardon, sir. I said punch me. Don't worry, I'm not as fragile as the humans from your universe. As you wish. Cogman raised a massive metal fist and swung forward, holding back most of his strength. Jacob met the blow head-on, his own fist colliding against Cogman's. But to Cogman's surprise, he staggered back, his balance thrown off. He took several clumsy steps before catching himself, clearly shocked by Jacob's strength. Jacob smirked. No holding back, Cogman. Use your strength. Even if I get hurt, I'll heal. His arm shifted, black dragon scales extending and covering his forearm. He lunged, throwing another punch. This time Cogman didn't hold back. Their fists collided with a booming shockwave, sending Jacob flying like a ragdoll. He slammed into Styles, and both of them tumbled across the dirt until a tree stopped their roll. Jacob groaned, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He's so strong. His arm shifted back to normal as he sat up, only to hear Styles groaning beneath him. Get off me, Styles wheezed. Jacob stood and glanced down at him. Styles's face was buried in the dirt, blood dripping from his nose. Jacob chuckled. Thanks for catching me, man. If you hadn't been there, who knows how far I would have flown. Styles sat up, glaring. I wasn't trying to catch you. You crashed into me. Jacob patted his shoulder. Either way, thanks. He walked back to the group. Allison and Lydia both rushed to him with worried looks. Allison noticed the blood at his lip. Are you okay? She asked softly. Jacob wiped the corner of his mouth and smirked. I'm fine. Lydia crossed her arms. Why would you do that? I wanted to see how strong a transformer really is. By now Cogman had separated from the car again, returning to his smaller humanoid form. He hurried to Jacob's side. Sir, are you all right? I'm fine. Jacob assured him. You're strong, but one day, I'll be stronger than you. I hope that day comes soon, sir. Jacob said. Compared to your full form, how strong is this smaller body of yours? Cogman shook his head. Not nearly as strong, but still stronger than you, sir. Jacob chuckled. I don't think so. Even in your full form, I could kill you if I wanted. Cogman said. I only used raw strength, sir. I didn't use my weapons. I can move so fast that you can't hit me. Besides, Jacob replied. He raised his arm. Lightning crackled around his hand, growing into a glowing orb of electricity the size of a basketball. I didn't use all my abilities, and I didn't even shift fully. Cogman tilted his head. Are all the humans in this world like you, sir? Jacob shook his head. No. But some are. In this world, mythical creatures are real. I'll explain later. Styles stumbled toward them, groaning. Right, no one cares about poor Styles. Lydia rolled her eyes. You're fine, aren't you? Styles said dramatically. I am, but a little concern wouldn't kill you. I caught your stupid boyfriend, after all. Scott smirked and patted his shoulder. You okay, buddy? Styles huffed. Too late to ask now. Jacob chuckled, then gestured to Allison and Lydia. Cogman, this is Allison Argent, and this is Lydia Martin. They're both my girlfriends, and the ladies of the house. Cogman straightened, then bowed with exaggerated grace. An honor to meet you, Madam Allison. And an honor to meet you, Madam Lydia. Jacob then pointed at Scott. This is my friend Scott. Cogman gave a polite nod before turning his glowing blue eyes to Styles. And him, sir. Jacob smirked. That's Styles. He's a friend too. And, I may have promised him that whatever I summon, I'd order it to attack him. So, you can teach him a lesson. Cogman looked at Styles and blinked with only one eye. Is he like you, sir? He is not. Jacob said. But he is not a normal human either, so you can beat him with no worries. He will heal in minutes. Styles's eyes widened. Wait. But Cogman lunged before he could finish. Styles tried to defend himself, but Cogman was stronger and moved like a veteran fighter. Within moments, Styles was on the ground, Cogman's hand clamped tightly around his throat. Cogman, that's enough. Jacob ordered. Cogman didn't let go. If I ripped his head off, sir, would he heal? Jacob's expression flattened. No, he would not. Let him go. Styles, choking, managed to rasp. Let me go, you psycho robot. Cogman's head spun a full 360 degrees as he sneered. I really want to crush your windpipe. Jacob burst out laughing. Let him go, Cogman. Take your car body, or whatever you call it, to the garage. Then come inside the mansion so we can talk. Cogman sighed in disappointment but released Styles, who scrambled up and bolted behind Scott. Jacob. That bastard you summoned is a psychopath. You should send him back where he came from. Cogman looked at Styles and was about to attack him again. Jacob said. Cogman, go do as you were told. Cogman narrowed his glowing blue eyes at Styles. Watch yourself. You're on my shit list now. Then, without another word, he got into the Aston Martin and drove toward the garage. The group stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Allison turned to Jacob with concern. Jay, is it really safe to keep him around? Jacob smirked. Don't worry. He's loyal to me. He won't hurt anyone, unless they're an enemy. Now, let's head back inside. Chapter 43. Plans for the future. Jacob, Allison, Lydia, Scott, and Styles returned inside the mansion and settled in the living room. A moment later, Cogman followed them. Jacob looked at him and asked. Cogman, can you take the appearance of a human? I've seen some Transformers do it in the movies. Cogman said. Yes, sir. I can. But I would need to purchase certain materials to create a prosthetic skin using nanotechnology. That way, the skin would be capable of healing, and I could freely transform between a human form and my original one. How expensive are those materials? Jacob asked. About $200,000, sir. Jacob nodded. All right. I'll give you the money so you can make it. Having a human form will make it easier for you to move around without freaking people out. Cogman tilted his head. Understood, sir. But should I take the form of a man, or a woman? Allison raised her hands immediately. No. Don't you dare turn into a woman. Lydia quickly added, narrowing her eyes. Yeah. The last thing I need is to share Jacob with some female robot. Jacob gave them both a look and chuckled. Girls, come on. I'm a pervert, sure, but not that much of a pervert. Besides, Cogman is a man. Even if he looked like a woman, I'd still think of him as a man. Doesn't matter. Allison said firmly. I don't want him looking like a woman. Me neither. Lydia agreed. Jacob said with a smirk. You heard them, Cogman. Take the form of an old man. And although I wouldn't be attracted to you if you turn into a woman, I wouldn't recommend it anyway. Cogman blinked. May I ask why, sir? Jacob's smirk widened. Because we have a friend who lusts after everything. He even humps and kisses pillows. If you looked like a woman, he'd definitely try to sleep with you. Styles' face went beet red as Scott, Allison, and Lydia burst out laughing. Cogman slowly turned his glowing eyes toward Styles. It's you, isn't it? Styles waved his arms defensively. Don't listen to his nonsense. I was asleep, dreaming about a girl, that's all. Cogman muttered. In cases like this, I've learned it's best to be safe than sorry. Hey, hey, hey. What's that supposed to mean, you crazy robot? Styles shouted. Without warning, Cogman tackled Styles off the couch, pinning him down with a knee to his chest. One of Cogman's hands shifted into a pair of giant scissors, snapping open and shut menacingly. He glanced at Jacob. If I castrate him, sir, he wouldn't heal from that, would he? Jacob burst out laughing. No, he would not. Get off me, you psycho. Styles yelled, struggling. Cogman's scissor hand clicked again. Then should I do it, sir? That way he won't try to sleep with me. And he won't hump your furniture when he visits either. Jacob grinned. Don't. Cogman's head rotated a full 360 degrees as he muttered. But I so very much want to hurt him, sir. Get off him. Jacob shook his head, still smiling. And don't worry, I'm sure plenty of idiots will attack me in the future. You can have all the fun you want with them. Cogman reluctantly let Styles go. Styles scrambled to his feet, glaring. Stay away from me, you psychopath. Cogman snapped into a boxing stance, bouncing lightly on his feet and punching the air. What's wrong? You want to fight? Let's go, I'm ready. Jacob sighed. That's enough, Cogman. Styles is my friend. Be nice to him. Cogman lowered his fists. Fine, sir. I'll try. But I really don't like him. I don't like you either. Styles shot back. I think you've got a screw loose in that brain of yours. Enough, you two. Jacob cut in before it escalated further. He leaned forward. Cogman, sit. Tell me, what year is it in the world I summoned you from? Cogman sat down on the couch. It is the year 2022, sir. Jacob said. You're a butler, right? So, did you have a master there? Cogman's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. No. My former master, Sir Edmund Burton, died a hero 5 years ago. After burying him, I remained in his castle, alone. Allison's face softened. I'm sorry to hear that. It is quite all right, madam. Cogman replied calmly. Though it is always the hardest part of my duty as a butler, to say goodbye to my masters, I have grown used to it after serving the aristocracy for 7 centuries. Scott blinked. 7 centuries. Wait, how old are you exactly? Cogman said. More than 10,000 years. I have long since lost count. But in truth, I am still young. Cybertronians live for millions of years, unlike you humans. Styles leaned forward, eyes wide. Do you know Sam Witwicky? I never met him. Cogman admitted. But I know of him. What about Optimus Prime? Bumblebee? The rest of the Autobots? Styles asked quickly. Cogman nodded. Yes. I fought at their side against the Great Deceiver, Quintessa, 5 years ago. Allison tilted her head. Did the Chicago War really happen in your world? Yes. It did. Cogman said gravely. Suddenly, both Jacob and Scott's noses twitched at the same time. Jacob frowned. What's that smell? Scott turned his head sharply toward Styles. What's wrong with you? You smell bad. Jacob narrowed his eyes. That's the smell of anxiety. Styles, what's going on? Styles was visibly shaking, his face pale. If the world of those movies is real, then which ones are real and which ones aren't? Lydia raised a brow. Why do you even care? Why do I care? Styles nearly shouted. Think about it. If movies based on comics are real worlds, like Cogman's, then we're screwed. Take Marvel, for example. They've already made Iron Man 1 and 2, Captain America, the Hulk, Spider-Man, and even Thor. And next year they're releasing the Avengers. I read spoilers, it's about a war between the Avengers and the Chitauri army. Lydia rolled her eyes. So, you don't get it. Styles snapped. The Chitauri serve Thanos. Do you know what Thanos did in the Infinity Gauntlet comics? He gathered the 6 Infinity Gems and wiped out half the universe's population. What if he's real? What if he comes to our world with the gauntlet and snaps us out of existence? His voice cracked. And what if Darkseid is real? Or one of the evil versions of Superman? Okay, Styles, calm down. Jacob cut him off firmly. Even if those beings exist, they're not going to come here. But you brought Cogman here with a summoning scroll. What if there are more scrolls like that out there? Styles countered. Jacob exhaled. Maybe it has something to do with what I am. Maybe the scroll was originally meant to summon a demon or some creature from this world, but because of me, it pulled Cogman in from another universe instead. Styles swallowed hard. Then, what exactly are you? Jacob sighed. Something people would try anything to kill, or capture. So give me time. At least until I become an alpha. Then, I promise, I'll tell you what I am. Scott asked. Do you need to kill an alpha to become one? Jacob shook his head. No. My strength is growing every day. Once I'm strong enough, I'll naturally become an alpha. He smirked. Now, while Styles is anxious about the movie worlds being real, I'm actually excited. Scott raised a brow. Excited? Why? Jacob grinned. Because maybe one day, I'll find a way to visit those worlds. Go on adventures, meet all the beautiful girls. Lydia and Allison instantly pinched his sides from both directions. Jacob coughed. I mean, go on adventures with you girls, of course. Styles said. Then you've gotta take us with you too. Jacob tilted his head. Didn't you just say you were terrified of those worlds a minute ago? Styles said. I am terrified. But come on, if there's a chance to visit those worlds, I'm not missing it. Jacob chuckled. Let's just hope there really is a way. But if there is, I'm definitely not going near Marvel or DC until I'm strong enough. Styles muttered. Yeah, you've got a point there. Jacob suddenly straightened. Speaking of strength, let me show you one of my other abilities. He extended his hand and a sleek handgun appeared out of thin air. Scott, Styles, and even Cogman widened their eyes. Styles nearly jumped out of his seat. How did you do that? Jacob smirked. Just like my lightning abilities, I can use spatial abilities. I have my own pocket dimension where I can store things. Styles stared at him in disbelief. I really want to know what kind of creature you are. Jacob ignored him, putting the gun away. He then pulled out a box filled with 30 ribeye Wagyu steaks and handed it to Cogman. Here. Make us lunch. Cogman opened the box, his glowing eyes brightening. Oh. Wagyu steaks. Delightful. How many shall I prepare, sir? Cook 15. Jacob said. Give me the rest so I can put them back in my dimension to keep them fresh. Cogman tilted his head. 15, sir. Then his eyes shifted to Styles. Don't look at me, Styles said quickly, pointing at Jacob. He's the one who eats like a black hole. Jacob grinned. Correct. Now go cook the steaks. Make some side dishes too. The fridge is stocked, and there's a cold room full of ingredients. Understood, sir. Cogman stood, took the steaks, and marched off toward the kitchen. Jacob stored the remaining steaks back into his dimension, then caught Styles staring at him. What? Styles asked bluntly. How many abilities do you have? Jacob smirked. A few more, but I'm not telling you. Gotta keep some mystery alive. They hung out in the living room, chatting about movie worlds until Cogman called them for lunch. After feasting, they returned to the living room. Cogman joined them once he'd cleaned the kitchen. Jacob reached into his pocket dimension, pulled out a bank card, and handed it to him. Here. There's 2 million on this card. Order the materials you need for your synthetic skin. Then invest the rest. Since you're from 2022, you should know which companies will blow up in the future. Buy them now while they're small if you can. Cogman tapped his chin thoughtfully. I could also start a technology company, manufacturing computers, phones, electrical appliances. Perhaps even an app and software company. Or, a company that specializes in cars and motorcycles. Jacob smiled. Do whatever you think is best. Wait a month or two, and I'll give you more money. He smirked to himself. I can get money from Peter, Derek, maybe even Kate. Cogman's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. Sir, I'll need a laptop. Jacob waved a hand. Go grab mine. It's upstairs in my bedroom. And you can stay in the guest house behind the mansion. Turn it into your lab, workshop, or whatever you need. Cogman gave a small bow. Thank you, sir. I'll take my leave and begin researching this world before deciding the best way to invest your money. Wait. Jacob reached into his pocket dimension and pulled out the bestiary. He handed the heavy book to Cogman. This is an encyclopedia of supernatural creatures in our world. I want you to digitize it. Turn it into a phone and computer app, something that lets us identify a creature based on its traits and abilities. Cogman accepted the book with a nod. Consider it done, sir. He then went upstairs, collected the laptop, and headed to the guest house. Jacob and the others stayed in the living room chatting until Scott finally stood. I've got work. Catch you later. He and Styles left. Afterward, Jacob settled in between Allison and Lydia on the couch, arms around both as they watched a movie. By evening, Allison's phone rang. She sighed. It's my mom. I've got to go. But Jay, don't forget, you're picking me up tomorrow for our date. Jacob kissed her. Of course. Want me to give you a ride home? Allison smirked. No. Hand me your bike keys. Jacob blinked. What? Don't want to. She teased. He hesitated. What if you crash and hurt her? Allison frowned. Are you seriously more worried about your stupid bike than me? Jacob said. You're not a normal human anymore. Even if you get hurt, you'll heal in minutes. But Raven, she can't. Raven. Allison raised a brow. Jacob smirked proudly. Yeah, I named her Raven. Allison's face darkened. She grabbed his ear and twisted. Give me the damn keys. Ouch, ouch. Fine. He pulled the keys from his pocket dimension and handed them over. Allison tried to snatch them, but Jacob refused to let go. Let go, she demanded, twisting his ear harder. Sniffling dramatically, Jacob finally released the keys and threw himself into Lydia's arms. Ah, poor Raven. I might never see her again. Allison rolled her eyes. She'll be fine, idiot. Jacob muttered. I don't trust you. Just 2 weeks ago you hit a dog. You're a terrible driver. Allison kicked his shin. Idiot. Then she smiled sweetly at Lydia. Good night. Good night. Lydia replied warmly. Allison left, and soon the rumble of Jacob's bike echoed outside. Jacob sniffled and buried his head into Lydia's chest while she laughed. She lifted his chin, eyes glinting playfully. How about we go take a bath, and do something fun? Jacob instantly dropped the act. Without hesitation, he scooped her into his arms and sprinted upstairs. You're the best, Lydia. You always know how to comfort my worried heart. Chapter 44. A Talk with the Argents. Jacob and Lydia were woken the next morning at 10 a.m. by a knock on the bedroom door. Still half asleep, Jacob mumbled. What is it, Cogman? Good morning, sir. Breakfast is ready. Cogman replied politely. Oh, thanks. We'll shower and come down. Jacob said, yawning. Very well, sir. Cogman said before heading back downstairs. Lydia yawned, still clinging to Jacob, and asked, what time is it? Jacob grabbed his phone from the nightstand, checked it, and said, it's 10 a.m. Lydia sat up, her hair a complete mess. I should go soon. My mom said she's taking me out today. Jacob kissed her, then scooped her up in his arms and carried her to the bathroom. After a quick shower together, they went downstairs to the kitchen. The dining table was filled with all kinds of food, eggs, sausages, and a variety of baked goods. Cogman was waiting for them, standing like a proper butler. Good morning, sir. Madam. Cogman greeted. Good morning, Cogman. Lydia smiled warmly. As she went to sit, Cogman moved the chair out for her like a gentleman. Lydia smiled again and said, thank you. You're welcome, madam. Cogman replied. Jacob frowned. Hey, aren't you going to help me sit too? Cogman completely ignored him and instead asked Lydia. What would you like to drink, madam? I've prepared tea, coffee, and freshly squeezed orange juice. I'll have coffee and some orange juice, no sugar. Lydia said. Right away, madam. Jacob sighed and sat down by himself. Give me juice too, and a latte, with sugar. Sugar is bad for your health, sir. Cogman said flatly. Jacob narrowed his eyes. Don't worry about my health. Just do as you're told. As you wish, sir. You're the one who's going to get diabetes and die anyway. Just make sure to leave some children behind to carry on your bloodline before that happens. Cogman said matter-of-factly. Jacob slammed the table. Are you cursing me, you stupid tin can? No, sir. Cogman said calmly. But diabetes killed a few of my former masters, as well as their wives and children. I only advise caution. There's no need to worry about that happening to me. I'm a dragon, I don't get sick. Jacob said smugly. Cogman placed their drinks in front of them and tilted his head. A dragon? Yes. And I'm in my growth stage. Jacob explained. So you'll need to make me big meals every day, rich in nutrients. And don't tell anyone else about me being a dragon. I assume Madam Allison already knows. Cogman asked. Yes. Jacob admitted. But Styles and Scott don't, and I'd like to keep it that way for now. After breakfast, Lydia kissed Jacob goodbye, and Cogman rushed to open the gate for her. Jacob sprawled out in the living room, watching an animal documentary. When Cogman returned, Jacob asked, did you order the materials for your skin? Yes. They'll arrive in 2 days. Cogman replied. And how soon can you finish once they arrive? 2 days at most, sir. Good. Did you make the bestiary app I asked for? Yes. It's already installed on your laptop. As for your phone, I'll wait until the materials arrive. Then I'll design a proper phone for you and install it there as well. Perfect. Also, make phones for Allison, Lydia, Scott, and Styles. Jacob instructed. Understood, sir. Jacob asked. You've read the bestiary, right? I have. Cogman nodded. I assume you know about the hunters too, and probably even more than I do now about the supernatural side of this world. Cogman said. Indeed. I did some hacking yesterday. I now have files on the hunters and countless secret organizations. They capture, kill, and experiment on supernatural creatures, and on humans as well. Interesting, Jacob muttered. Tell me, does the government know about the supernatural? Yes, sir. Cogman replied. Some organizations are private, but most belong to governments around the world. Jacob narrowed his eyes. Is there one here in California? Only small labs and black market dealers. Cogman explained. The larger research facilities are elsewhere. The biggest one in the United States is in Nevada, Area 51. If you wish, I can give you the rest of the locations in detail. Not now. Jacob said. I doubt they'll come after me here. Besides, I'll keep a low profile, or at least kill my enemies so no one lives to tell stories about me. He leaned forward. What I do want to hear is what plan you've come up with to invest my money. Cogman began explaining his strategy, and the two talked for hours until afternoon. Eventually, Jacob had a big lunch, changed his clothes, and drove over to Allison's house. When he arrived at the Argent residence, Jacob parked his car and reached out telepathically. Allison, I'm outside. You ready for our date? Her voice popped into his head almost immediately. You scared me, you idiot. I'm in the shower, give me 15 minutes. Jacob smirked. More like 50. I'll be quick, I promise. Should I sneak in and join you in the shower? Jacob teased. No. Allison screamed in his head. Kate's outside the bathroom door talking to me. Stupid Kate, fine. I'll go for a ride before your dad drags me inside for another awkward talk. Call me when you're ready. Alright. Jacob was about to get back into his car when the front door opened. Chris stepped outside. Chris called. Kid, come inside. Immediately Allison's voice rushed into Jacob's head again. Jacob, have you left yet? Kate just said she heard someone open the front door and she went downstairs. Jacob sighed as he walked toward the porch. No, I haven't left. Your dad just came out and invited me in. Her laughter echoed through his mind. Please just bear with him for a few minutes. I'll try. When Jacob reached the door, he found Victoria and Kate standing behind Chris, waiting. He nodded politely. Good evening, Mr. Argent. Mrs. Argent. Kate. Kate flashed him a playful smile. Hello, handsome. Come on in. Jacob stepped forward, only to slam into something invisible. A barrier shimmered faintly where he'd tried to pass. He pressed his palm against it, then looked at Chris. You invited me in, so why the barrier? Chris smirked. If you can't cross it, then you won't be taking my daughter out. And you'll stay away from her from now on. Jacob grinned. And what if I can cross it? Then I won't stop you from dating her. Chris said firmly. Jacob glanced at Victoria and Kate. You both heard him, right? If I can't enter, I'll stay away from Allison. But if I can, he'll stop interfering. Kate folded her arms, smirking. Sure, kid. If you break through, I guarantee Chris will keep his word. Jacob smirked. All right then. Then, to the surprise of all three, Jacob's hand ignited on fire. He pressed it against the mountain ash barrier. Instantly, the barrier burst into flames and burned away until nothing remained. Jacob winked at Chris, stepped inside, and casually strolled past them into the living room. He dropped himself comfortably onto the couch as if he owned the place. The three Argents exchanged uneasy looks before Kate and Victoria followed him inside. Chris slammed the door shut and joined them, his glare fixed on Jacob. But Jacob spoke first. So, are you going to keep your word and let me date Allison? Chris narrowed his eyes. What do you think? Jacob chuckled. I see. A man with no word, huh? I didn't break my promise. Chris snapped. I said if you could walk through the barrier, not burn your way in. Jacob shrugged. Technicalities. Either way, I'm not staying away from Allison. Chris leaned forward. What are you? A hellhound? Jacob smirked. Maybe. Maybe not. Kate crossed her arms. Do you even know what a hellhound is? Of course. Jacob said smoothly. A shapeshifter, a harbinger of death, with the power to generate and control fire. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Just like you. Jacob only smirked wider. Maybe. Chris's voice hardened. Did you tell Allison what you are? Jacob shot back immediately. Did you tell her what you and your family are, Hunter? Chris asked. You know I'm a hunter. Jacob leaned back casually. Of course. Isn't it normal for me to know who my friends and enemies are when I move into a new town? And I assume you figured out that I'm a supernatural creature the night I caught that mountain lion. Victoria studied him seriously. Did you get close to my daughter because she's an Argent? Jacob said firmly. No, I didn't know Allison was an Argent when I first met her. When I saw you picking her up and realized she was an Argent, it was too late. I was already attracted to her. And don't worry, I don't mean harm to her or your family. In fact, I'd do anything to protect her. Victoria frowned. So that night I met you on the road, when you were being chased by that bear, you knew what it really was, didn't you? And you were just pretending. Jacob smirked. Weren't you pretending too? You knew it was an alpha werewolf, but you kept calling it a bear. He laughed. And I remember you asked me if I was bitten, telling me you would take me to the hospital if I was. I was laughing in my head. Because I knew you wouldn't be taking me to a doctor. You'd take me straight to the morgue. Isn't that what you do? Killing shapeshifters just for being what they are. Chris's jaw tightened. We have a code, kid. Jacob leaned forward, eyes sharp. Sure, I know your code. But tell me, are you certain every shapeshifter you killed was a murderer? Are you sure all your hunters follow that code? Kate snapped. There are no innocent shapeshifters. Especially werewolves. They're all dangerous monsters that need to be put down. Jacob's gaze locked on hers, his tone cold. That's just a lie Gerard probably told you. Or maybe something you tell yourself so your guilty conscience lets you sleep at night. Chris's face hardened. You know Gerard. Jacob nodded. Of course I know about the infamous Gerard Argent. Never met him, but I've heard enough. A bastard more evil than a Najitsun. Watch your mouth, you little punk. Chris snapped. That's my father you're insulting. Jacob smirked darkly. You'll find out sooner or later what kind of man he really is. Then his gaze slid over to Kate. But I bet Kate already knows. Her heartbeat is going crazy right now. Chris turned to her, suspicious. Kate shrugged. Don't look at me like that. Gerard might be proud of you and a good father to you, but to me, he's a terrible father. No matter what I do, I would never be good enough for him. You have no idea what terrible things he made me do, Chris. The kid said it best. Gerard is more evil than a Najitsun. Chris went silent, jaw tight. Victoria quickly stepped in to shift the conversation. She turned to Jacob. Tell me, kid, why was the Alpha after you that night on the road? And why did he follow you to our house and attack you the second time? Jacob leaned back on the couch, calm. I already told you why he came after me the first time. I beer sprayed him and gouged his eyes. Then his smirk returned as he looked at Kate. As for the second time, he wasn't after me. He was after her. Kate narrowed her eyes. Why would he come after me? Jacob tilted his head. I don't know. But judging by how fast and loud your heartbeat is right now, I'm sure you know. Maybe you killed someone from his pack. Kate gave another careless shrug. I don't remember. I've killed a lot of monsters. Jacob's smirk faded into something colder. You know I can tell when you're lying, right? Or maybe I'm not lying. Kate shot back. Maybe I'm just nervous. Jacob chuckled lowly. Maybe. But Kate, have you ever heard this saying? Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Can't remember who said it, but the point is, you should make sure you don't turn into a monster yourself while hunting monsters. Kate smirked. Don't worry about me, kid. I can handle myself. What I want to know is, what are you? Jacob shrugged. I don't know. There's no one left from my family to tell me. Victoria leaned forward. Why don't you shift and let us see? Maybe we can help. Jacob let out a dry laugh. Help? You mean help put me in a morgue? Chris shook his head. No. We'd help you identify what you are. Jacob looked at him. Yeah, right. I'm not stupid. You want to know what I am so you can learn my weaknesses, beat me, and force me to stay away from Allison. Then he turned his sharp gaze to Victoria. And you're probably already thinking of ways to kill me. I can practically smell the killing intent coming off you. Finally, his eyes locked on Kate. As for you, you're probably thinking of filling Allison's head with lies and manipulating her to kill me with her own hands. Jacob's smirk vanished. His tone grew serious. Like I said before, I don't mean Allison or you guys any harm. So please, for Allison's sake, don't push me. Don't make me do something I'll regret. Kate leaned back, smirking. What? Are you threatening to kill us? Jacob looked at her. No. I'm not cruel enough to kill Allison's parents and break her heart. But you, Kate, his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I'm not so sure about. Kate scoffed, brushing his words off. Allison loves me. If you kill me, she'd never forgive you. Jacob smirked darkly. She wouldn't have to know it was me. Maybe I'll just ambush you when you're alone, burn you to ash until there's nothing left. You'd simply disappear from this world. Kate's heartbeat spiked, pounding loud in Jacob's ears. She was scared. Then Allison's voice rang in his head, sharp and protective. Jay, stop scaring her. Jacob answered telepathically. All right, I was just messing with her. Now go put on your clothes. You've been eavesdropping on the stairs since I walked in. Allison replied. Okay. I'll be down in a minute. He heard her tiptoe back toward her room. Jacob leaned back against the couch, eyes still fixed on Kate. Relax. I was just messing with you. As long as you don't try to harm me, I'll treat you with respect. Then he turned to Chris, his tone sharpening again. But understand this, sir, I'm not Derek Hale. Don't think you can bring your hunters and try to push me around. I won't hurt you, but your goons. I won't be nearly as patient. Chris narrowed his eyes. You know Derek Hale. Jacob smirked. Yeah, I know him. I even know who the Alpha is. Chris leaned forward. What? Tell me who it is. Jacob tilted his head. And what's in it for me? Chris said firmly. You'll be helping us take down a monster that's killing innocent people in this town. Jacob laughed, shaking his head. Innocent people. For a hunter, you're really clueless. Chris frowned. What do you mean by that? Jacob stood up, brushing him off. Forget it. Let's end this little talk. Allison's on her way down. Chris straightened, his tone suddenly stern. Don't tell her about the supernatural. Or about us being hunters. I don't want her to know yet. Jacob said. Fine. But when should I tell her? Chris crossed his arms. Don't worry. I'll tell her myself. Just then Allison came down the stairs, eyeing them curiously and pretending like she didn't hear their conversation. What were you guys talking about? And why did you all stop when I walked in? Jacob smiled lightly. Nothing important. They were just trying to intimidate me like usual and didn't want you to know. Let's go. Without waiting, he walked out of the living room. Allison said a quick goodbye to her parents and Kate before following him out to his car. Kate moved to the window, watching Jacob and Allison drive away. Her smirk returned as she turned to Chris. Are you really going to let him date her? Chris's eyes hardened. No. I told him not to tell her because I want to make him lose control in front of her, make him the first monster she sees. Maybe that way she'll be scared of him and not trust him because he didn't tell her what he is. Then we'll tell her about Wendigos and all kinds of evil creatures out there, and make her hate him, and turn against him. Kate grinned. Not bad. Sounds like a plan worth trying. Chapter 45. A bond sealed. After leaving the Argent house, Jacob and Allison drove toward town. Inside the car, Allison glanced at him. Do you think they'll try to attack you? Jacob shrugged. Probably. But don't worry, I'll just teach them a small lesson so they know I'm not a pushover. The rest is up to you. You can either convince them to stop bothering me, or just tell them that we're bonded. If they kill me, you'll die too. Allison frowned. Do you really think my mom wants to kill you? Jacob nodded. I'm about 90% sure she wants to kill me, so you won't date a monster. Allison sighed. Why does she hate you so much? I don't think she hates me personally. Jacob replied. I think she hates all supernatural creatures because she was raised to hate and kill them. I don't know what my parents went through growing up, but I want to help them see that not all supernatural creatures are evil. Like you. Like Scott. Jacob smiled faintly. Good luck with that, especially with your mom. She feels like a snake. Cold, calm, and when you least expect it, she'll strike. Allison laughed softly. Yeah, I agree. But don't let her hear you call her a snake. She'll hate you for the rest of her life. Jacob smirked. I won't tell her if you don't. Let's not talk about my parents and the supernatural anymore. Allison leaned back. Where are you taking me? Jacob raised an eyebrow. How about you take me on a date today? Maybe another time. She teased, then gave him a wink. I was actually thinking, we grab a quick bite and then head to your place. Jacob blinked. Head to my place. I just got out of there, so maybe let's have fun in town first. He caught the look she gave him and froze. Wait, are you talking about? Allison cut him off. Yes, you don't need to say it out loud. Jacob grinned. Finally. Then I think there's no need for us to grab a bite. He spun the wheel, drifting the car as he changed direction toward his mansion. Allison laughed. Slow down, you idiot. Slow down. Jacob grinned wider. I never wished for a teleportation ability more than I'm wishing for it now. He smirked at her. How about, we just do it in the car? Allison rolled her eyes. How about we go on a date, and you drive me home without doing anything? Jacob sighed. Fine. Home it is. But Allison leaned closer, smiling. We can do it in the car some other time. For my first time, though, I at least want a bed. As you wish. Jacob said, grinning. For me, I don't care where we do it, I only care that we do it. Lydia isn't home, right? Allison asked. No, she's spending the day with her mom. Good. Allison whispered. I want to be alone with you in the house today. Moments later, they pulled up to the mansion. Jacob parked, scooped Allison into his arms, and sprinted to the front door. Just as they reached it, the door opened. Cogman stood there, bowing politely. Good afternoon, madam. Then he glanced at Jacob. Sir, didn't you say you were going on a date with Madam Allison? Jacob walked past him with Allison still in his arms. Change of plans, we decided to. Before he could finish, Allison's cheeks turned red. She slapped her hand over his mouth. Shut up. Oh, I see. Cogman said with a perfectly serious tone. You two wish to canoodle. Should I set the mood? Perhaps light some candles in the bedroom, scatter rose petals. Cogman. Jacob snapped while Allison buried her face in his shoulder, pinching him furiously. That's enough. We don't need anything. As you wish, sir. Then, when should I prepare dinner? Jacob groaned. What time is it now? It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sir. Fine. Call us for dinner at 11. Very well. Without another word, Jacob sprinted upstairs with Allison still in his arms, kicked the door closed behind him, and tossed her gently onto the bed. He climbed in after her, staring straight into her eyes. I'm good with sarcasm, and I know how to make fun of people. Jacob said quietly, his tone uncharacteristically serious. But I'm not good with romantic words. So I won't say anything cheesy. I'll just say, I love you, Allison. Allison's eyes softened. That's better than any romantic line you could have come up with. I love you too. Jacob leaned down, and their lips met. The teasing was gone, replaced by passion. Soon, their clothes were thrown aside, and they lost themselves in each other, starting a lovemaking session that lasted for a few hours. Later, the two of them lay together in the bathtub, surrounded by hot water. Allison rested her head on Jacob's chest, eyes closed with a soft, satisfied smile. Jacob's eyes were closed as well, though he wasn't fully at rest. The translucent blue screen of the system floated before him. Congratulations, host. You have consummated your bond with Allison Argent. Your strength will now begin to grow faster than before, and you may grant Allison abilities and bloodlines rewarded by the system. Jacob's thoughts stirred. By the way, I should have asked this earlier, but, what exactly can I share with people who aren't my mates? I gave the Mirakuru to Styles and it worked. I gave Derek a Senzu bean, and it healed him too. Potions and consumable rewards can be given to anyone. However, abilities and bloodlines cannot. For example, the Thunder Element crystal you received before may be given to anyone and it will work, because it is consumable. But if you obtain a Thunder ability that must be merged into your body by the system, it can only be used by you or transferred to one of your mates. I see, so consumables can be given to anyone, but abilities and bloodlines are exclusive. He exhaled, stroking Allison's hair. Alright then, what are the rewards I got after sleeping with Allison? Rewards for consummating the bond with Allison Argent. Ability: Earth Element Control. Spatial Ring *10, 100 cubic meters. Memory Neuralizer Men in Black, a flash device capable of erasing, modifying, or replacing recent memories of anyone exposed to its flash. Perfect for covering up inconvenient events. Jacob's eyes lit up when he saw the rewards. Cool, is it weird that I'm more excited about the Memory Neuralizer than the Earth Element ability? He shook his head with a smile. And the spatial rings. Useless for me, but I bet the girls will love them. Host, there are still rewards available for your mate. Jacob said in his mind. Show me. Please select one of the following bloodlines for your mate. 1. High Elf Bloodline. Lifespan. Near immortal longevity. Primary affinity. Nature and plant manipulation. Abilities: communicate with and command flora, accelerate plant growth, wield thorny vines in combat, and heal using natural energy. 2. Wind Fairy Bloodline. Lifespan: ageless and long-lived. Primary affinity: wind element. Abilities: generate powerful gusts, form razor-sharp wind blades, summon localized storms, and eventually create devastating tornadoes. 3. Vampire Bloodline. Lifespan: biologically immortal. Primary affinity: blood and darkness. Abilities: superhuman strength, extreme speed, rapid regeneration, enhanced senses, blood manipulation, and the ability to command lesser vampires. Power grows by turning others into lesser vampires, more lesser vampires, greater personal strength. Weakness to sunlight until the strength grows to the level of an alpha werewolf. Jacob skimmed the list. Elf isn't bad. I like the Wind Fairy. Vampire. Nope. Last thing I want is to become Allison's personal blood bag. He smirked and glanced at her. Allison, you awake? She opened her eyes lazily. Yeah. Good. Let's get out of here. I want to give you something. Her brows rose. What is it? Because if it's what I think it is, I can't do it anymore. I might be healed, but I'm still kind of numb down there. Jacob chuckled, standing and lifting her out of the tub. Trust me, I'm tempted. But I'm satisfied for tonight. She slipped from his arms, grabbed a towel, and dried off. Then what exactly are you giving me? He threw on a bathrobe. Something good. I promise you'll love it. As they stepped back into the bedroom, Allison glanced at the mess, clothes torn and scattered across the floor. She picked up her shredded shirt and sighed. Did you really have to tear my clothes? Jacob gave her a look. You're the one to talk. Did you forget what you did to mine? She stuck her tongue out at him, then went into the walk-in closet, returning in one of Jacob's black tracksuits. Jacob put on some sweatpants and a hoodie. Let's clean up first, Allison said. All right, he replied. Once the room was back in order, they sat together on the bed. Allison smiled softly. So, what is this mysterious gift? Jacob leaned closer, his tone serious. When a woman becomes my mate, I can pass a bloodline to her. Don't ask me how, I don't know. All I know is that these bloodlines are stored inside my body, and when we had sex for the first time, 3 of them chose you. I'll tell you what they are, and you can pick one. Allison looked at him in surprise, then gently touched his cheek, smiling before leaning in to kiss him. When the kiss broke, Jacob tilted his head, puzzled. Why are you looking at me like that? Allison said. Nothing. It's just, sometimes I think you're so mysterious and magical, and I even find it hard sometimes to believe that you're real. Jacob smirked. Yeah, I'm unbelievably awesome, aren't I? Allison rolled her eyes. Tell me about those bloodlines, you narcissist. Jacob told her about the 3 bloodlines in detail, then added. I didn't want to tell you about the vampire one. I don't like it, but it's your choice. Allison shook her head. I don't like it either. The elf one is nice, but I think I want the wind fairy bloodline. What do you think? Jacob smiled. Honestly, I think it's the best of the 3, and perfect for you. You're an archer. Imagine shooting arrows made of wind, and when you're strong enough, you can fly and even create disaster-level storms and tornadoes. Allison didn't hesitate. Then it's settled. I'll take the wind fairy bloodline. Jacob said. All right, turn around. She turned around, and Jacob placed his palm against her back. System, merge the wind fairy bloodline into Allison's body. Are you sure, host? Yes. A surge of energy pulsed from Jacob's hand into Allison. She felt her body grow hot as a strange force spread through every cell, weaving itself into her essence. After 5 minutes, a new system prompt appeared before Jacob's eyes. You may remove your hand now, host. The transformation will take approximately 1 hour to complete. Jacob saw Allison's eyes close peacefully. There was no pain, only calm. He let her rest and turned his focus inward. System, merge the earth element control ability into my body. Are you sure, host? Yes. A wave of heat surged through him, but it vanished just as quickly. Jacob raised his hand, and with a thought, a small rock formed in his palm. Another thought, and the rock crumbled into dust and disappeared. Jacob grinned, satisfied. Nice. System, show me my status. Status. Name, Jacob Alexander, 16 years old. Species, human, dragon. Abilities. 1. Pyrokinesis. 2. Electrokinesis. 3. Geokinesis. 4. Fire and electricity immunity. 5. Standard shifter abilities. 6. Poison immunity. 7. Passive charm. 8. Dragonborn shout Fus Ro Da Skyrim. 9. Dragon fire lightning breath. Weapons and items. Banana peel Mario Kart defective lightsaber, defective invisibility cloak, Excalibur knockoff, the Joker's laughing bomb X20, a can of Popeye's spinach, Mirakuru Arrow DC Comics X07, Senzu Beans X3, expired Senzu Beans X09, spatial ring X10, memory neuralizer, Men in Black, a replica of the katana Shisui, One Piece, a Glock 45. Jacob smiled with satisfaction. At least now I've got enough power to protect myself in this world, unless something crazy strong shows up that never appeared in the original Teen Wolf series. He sighed, stretching out on the bed. And even if something does, well, I still have Popeye's spinach to triple my strength. And Cogman, too. With that thought, Jacob relaxed, laying back on the bed, idly scrolling through his phone as he waited for Allison's transformation to finish. Chapter 46. Allison's transformation. An hour passed before Allison's eyes slowly fluttered open, only this time, they glowed a brilliant emerald green. She gasped, excitement surging through her, and leapt from the bed. Look. Green energy surrounded her body, and gentle wind stirred inside the room, rustling curtains. Allison's hair began turning dark green, her ears became long and pointy, and freckles bloomed beneath her eyes like delicate constellations. She raised her hand, and green wind started swirling around it. Jacob could only stare, stunned, breathless, utterly captivated. You look gorgeous. He whispered. Allison tilted her head, curiosity glimmering in her glowing eyes. Did my appearance change? Jacob nodded. Yes. Look at the mirror. She turned toward the floor-to-ceiling mirror across the room. Her lips parted in awe. Wow, I do look gorgeous, don't I? She turned left and right, admiring every detail of her new form, fingertips grazing the tips of her ears, then combing through the green silk of her hair. Jacob stepped behind her, slipping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. Together, they looked at her reflection. Can we do it while you're in this form? Jacob murmured with a sly grin. Allison shot him a playful wink. Not tonight. Please. Just once. She laughed softly. I want to do it as much as you, but I'm really numb down there and can't do it anymore tonight. You have to wait until tomorrow, or the day after if Lydia wants to do it with you tomorrow. Jacob sighed dramatically. That's a shame. I really wanted to sleep with a fairy. Allison turned, kissed him, and pressed her forehead to his. Be patient. I'll make it up to you. Fine. He muttered, though the smile tugging at his lips betrayed him. Come on. Allison said eagerly. Let's go outside. I want to try my abilities. Wait. Jacob said, sitting on the bed and pulling his laptop toward him. Let's see what the bestiary says about fairies first. Allison slid beside him as he opened Cogman's custom app and searched for Wind Fairy. Air is City, Wind Fairy or Air Fairy. Classification. Elemental Phi. Appearance. Beta form. Glowing green eyes, pointed ears, dark green hair, freckles beneath the eyes. Alpha form. Glowing red eyes. Large, butterfly-like wings. Abilities. Enhanced strength, speed, agility, and rapid healing. Aerokinesis. Control of wind to create gusts and razor-sharp blades, etc. Electrokinesis. Can generate electricity, often as bolts of lightning or smaller electric spheres, by manipulating electrical currents within the air. Alpha potential. In its alpha form, a wind fairy can be very dangerous. It can control the weather and, when strong enough, create devastating thunderstorms and tornadoes. Weaknesses. Mountain ash. Like many supernatural creatures, they cannot cross a barrier of mountain ash. Allison's eyes widened. Wow, I can do all that. I know about wind control, and you told me about the storms and tornadoes, but I didn't think I could use electricity. She lifted her hand, focusing intently. Nothing happened. She pouted. I can't do it. Jacob smiled gently, holding up his own palm. See if you can feel anything. Electricity started gathering and dancing around his fingers. Allison's eyes widened as she touched the current. Wow, it tingles. But it doesn't hurt. She closed her eyes, concentrating on the sensation. Slowly, cautiously, she pulled her hand back. Tiny sparks flickered into existence in her palm. Her eyes flew open. Yes, I did it. It's weak, but I did it. Overcome with excitement, she threw her arms around Jacob, hugging him tightly. Jacob chuckled, kissing her forehead. You just need to train every day and it will get stronger. That's how I did it. The more you use your abilities, the stronger they get and the better you'll be at controlling them. Allison pulled back, gave him a deep, passionate kiss, and whispered against his lips. Thank you. Jacob smiled. You're welcome. Allison stood, her green eyes still shimmering faintly. Let's go outside. I want to test my wind ability. Jacob raised a brow, leaning back on the bed. How about we have dinner first, then go to the woods? I'd rather not have you tear up the backyard. Allison chuckled, then shifted back into her human form, hair returning to its usual color, her ears normal once again. Fine. What time is it? Jacob glanced at his phone. 10 o'clock. Cogman should call us for dinner soon. Allison collapsed onto the bed with a bright smile, her excitement still bubbling beneath the surface. Jacob studied her for a moment, then spoke cautiously. I hate to bring this up, but did you forget about the mountain ash barrier? Your parents used it earlier to stop me from entering your house. I burned it, but what if they set up another? Allison's smile faltered. She sat up, worry flickering in her eyes. If they do, they'll find out I'm supernatural, and I don't want them to know. Not yet. Is there any way around it? Jacob shook his head. Sorry. There isn't. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then what if they ground me? Trap me inside the barrier like a prison? Jacob leaned back. They probably won't. And even if they do, remember, just because you can't pass through it doesn't mean you can't break it. If you focus your power on a single point, you could shatter it. Allison thought hard. Maybe, a large wind arrow, sharp and fast, aimed at one point. Make it spin. Jacob suggested. It'll hit harder that way. She nodded slowly, but her expression remained troubled. I'm not as worried about breaking the barrier as I am about my parents' reaction. Once they know I'm supernatural. Jacob reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. They'll be upset, sure. But you're not a werewolf, Allison. They won't hate you. Worst case, they blame me for turning you into a fairy. A small smirk tugged at Allison's lips. Then you have to bear with them. Jacob chuckled. Sorry, I can't do that. I already tolerated your dad pulling a gun on me every time he sees me. Allison frowned, half concerned, half amused. So what are you going to do? Jacob smirked. Don't worry. I won't hurt him. But if he tries it again, I'll just take his gun away. Besides, they might not even put the barrier back up, so they won't know what you've become. At least not yet. Allison exhaled slowly, relief and doubt mingling in her voice. I hope so. I'd rather they keep thinking I don't know anything. Jacob smiled. By the way, I still have another gift for you. Allison's eyes lit up with excitement. What is it? With a flick of his hand, Jacob summoned a ring from his pocket dimension. It gleamed in the low light, white gold, shaped into the head of a dragon. Two small red diamonds glowed like living eyes. Jacob looked at the ring and thought. Nice one, system. The ring looks really good. He held it out to her. I want you to have this. Allison's breath caught. A ring? Wait, is this supposed to be an engagement ring? Jacob handed it to her. Wear it. But Allison didn't take the ring. She looked at Jacob, smirking. What? No going down on one knee. No romantic proposal. Jacob grinned. Too late for that. We're already married. Allison snorted and took the ring from his hand. You're so unromantic. She studied it for a moment, then sighed. I can't wear it on my ring finger. My parents would freak out. Jacob shrugged. Wear it wherever you like. She slid it onto her left index finger and turned her hand, watching the dragon's jeweled eyes glimmer. It's beautiful, thank you. I love it. But, how much did this cost you? Jacob smirked knowingly. Believe me, you don't want to know the price of that ring. Her eyes widened slightly. Is it that expensive? Jacob said with a chuckle. If I ever put it up for sale, people would pay billions for it. Allison rolled her eyes, half amused. You're exaggerating. Jacob didn't argue. Instead, he gently took her right hand. With a flick of his claw, he made a tiny cut on her finger. Allison didn't say anything, just watched as Jacob dripped her blood on the ring. A soft glow spread across its surface as it absorbed the blood. Allison gasped. The moment it bonded, she felt a connection with it. Knowledge flooded her mind, the ring whispering its secrets to her. After learning what the ring really was, she turned to Jacob, speechless. Her eyes shimmered with awe. Then, without a word, she shifted into her fairy form. Green hair and glowing eyes framed her beauty as she pounced on him, tearing through his clothes once again. Half an hour later, the two lay tangled in each other's arms. Allison rested her head on Jacob's chest, still catching her breath. Her voice came soft, trembling with emotion. I don't even know what to say anymore. A simple thank you could never express how grateful I am, for everything you've given me. Jacob ran his hand slowly through her hair with a satisfied smile. You don't need to thank me, Allison. You're my girl well, not just my girlfriend, but my wife. My partner. For the rest of our lives. Making you happy isn't a gift, it's my duty. Allison lifted her face, smiling through her exhaustion. She kissed him gently. I love you. I love you too. Jacob replied with a smirk. My beautiful fairy. Allison groaned as she sat up, wincing slightly. We really shouldn't have done it again. Now, not only am I completely numb down there, but it even hurts a little. This is your fault, you handsome pervert. Jacob laughed, the sound echoing warmly through the room. Allison couldn't help but smile, playing with her new spatial ring, putting her phone in and out of it like a child with a new toy. Just then, a knock was heard on the door. Jacob sighed. What is it, Cogman? The butler's voice came through, polite as ever. Dinner is ready, sir. Jacob said. We'll be right down. Jacob rolled out of bed and scooped Allison effortlessly into his arms. Come on. Quick shower, then food. I'm starving. Minutes later, both dressed in fresh clothes, they prepared to leave. Allison shook her head, still amused. We should probably stop tearing each other's clothes. At this rate, we'll have nothing left to wear. Jacob shrugged with a grin. Who cares about clothes? We can always buy more. Let's go eat. Allison lingered. You go ahead, I'll clean the room first. I don't want Cogman seeing the mess we made. Jacob smirked. Then I'll help. Together they tidied the chaos, still exchanging smiles and glances. After that, they went downstairs, both in a good mood. In the kitchen, Cogman was waiting. He ignored Jacob entirely and instead helped Allison gracefully into her seat. You seem in good spirits, madam. I take it sir fulfilled his duties as a husband properly. Jacob, mid-sip of water, nearly choked. Allison raised a brow, her lips twitching into a smile. He did. She replied simply. Cogman said. I thought he couldn't. Jacob glared at the butler. You stupid tin can. Are you implying I'm impotent? Cogman's eyes glimmered with dry wit. Not at all, sir. But you do give the impression you might not last long. Allison burst out laughing. Jacob could only shake his head, stabbing into his steak. After swallowing, he muttered darkly. I know you're just joking, so I won't bother with you. But you're lucky you're not a woman, or I'd prove to you exactly how long I can last. Allison, still amused, tilted her head toward the butler. Tell me, Cogman, do Cybertronians have relationships? Like humans do. Cogman said. If you mean physical intercourse, madam, no. But we do have emotions. We feel anger, hate, remorse, and yes, love. Cybertronian males can fall in love with Cybertronian females. Our bonds are real. Just different. Allison leaned forward curiously. Then, how do you reproduce? Cogman said. Cybertronians reproduce by merging their spark energies. When a mature male and a mature female combine their spark energies, they create a child spark. It is our form of conception. Allison nodded, fascinated. I see. Do you have any children back in your world? Cogman shook his head. No, madam. I never cared for such matters. He turned then, fixing his glowing eyes on Jacob. By the way, sir, I believe this house requires a piano. Jacob arched a brow. What for? To annoy me. Cogman's tone remained level, but there was a glimmer of mischief. To set the mood, sir. And we need a pet as well. Jacob sighed, dragging a hand down his face. I don't need a piano, and I definitely don't need a pet. I already have you, an insufferably rude pet. Why would I want another? I am not a pet, sir. Cogman replied calmly. I am the butler of this house. And I am quite certain Madame Allison and Madame Lydia would love to have a companion animal. Jacob narrowed his eyes. Maybe later. And you didn't argue about the piano. Why? A pause. His gaze sharpened. You already bought one, didn't you? Cogman clasped his hands behind his back, unbothered. Yes, sir. It will arrive tomorrow along with the materials I ordered. Trust me, you are going to love it. Jacob leaned forward, voice low. I swear, if you start playing some creepy tune in the middle of the night, I will break that piano over your head. Cogman said. I won't do that, sir. Dinner ended. The plates cleared, the conversation dwindled. Jacob and Allison left the mansion together. Let's not take the car. Let's walk. Jacob suggested, slipping his hands into his pockets. We'll pass by the woods, you can test your powers there. Then we'll head to your house. I need to bring Raven home. Allison smirked. Your bike. Can't you leave it? I promise I'll bring it here tomorrow. Jacob shook his head. No. I don't trust your dad. If he finds out you're a supernatural creature, he'll blame me, and I don't want to imagine what he'd do to my bike. What if I put it in my ring? Allison countered. Still no. Jacob said. If you want a bike so badly, I'll buy you one. But Raven is mine. And even though I love you, I won't give her to you. Allison snorted. Fine. You don't need to buy me one. Just let me ride yours every now and then. Jacob nodded. Deal. But no more taking her to your house until your parents and I are on better terms. Fine. She said again, rolling her eyes. They reached the iron gate. Cogman was waiting, and with a graceful bow, he opened it. Good night, madam. Allison smiled warmly. Good night, Cogman. Then she turned to Jacob, eyes alight with playful energy. Let's run. I want to see how fast I can go now. Jacob smirked. All right. Let's go. And in an instant, they were gone. Two streaks of motion vanishing into the night, racing toward the woods at supernatural speed, leaving Cogman watching from the gate, his blue eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Chapter 47. Allison's Powers. Jacob and Allison sprinted side by side through the woods, their feet barely touching the ground as the world blurred around them. Allison laughed, exhilarated, her voice carrying over the rushing wind. Wow, this is incredible. I was fast after you gave me that potion, but never this fast. Jacob grinned, matching her pace with ease. Try channeling your wind ability into your speed, see if you can remove the air resistance around your body. Allison's eyes lit up. Oh, let me try. Green currents began swirling around her form as she ran. She focused, clumsy at first, but after a few tries she managed to control the air around her. Instantly, resistance vanished. A powerful stream of wind burst behind her like a jet, propelling her forward. She shot ahead in a blur, her hair whipping wildly in the gale. Jacob chuckled and poured on more speed until he caught up, matching her stride. For a few moments, they were nothing but streaks of motion in the moonlit forest. But soon, Allison skidded to a stop. All right, let's stop here. Jacob stopped beside her, tilting his head. Tired already? She shook her head, breathing steady. Running without wind is almost effortless. But when I use my powers, it drains me fast. I'd rather save my energy for testing my other abilities. Jacob nodded. Fair enough. Then let's see what you can do. And to do that, he smirked, cracking his knuckles. I'm going to attack you. Allison's eyes glowed bright green as she shifted into her fairy form. She smiled, excitement glinting in her eyes. That sounds fun. Jacob's expression grew serious. Are you ready? I won't go easy on you. Bring it on. In a flash of movement, Jacob appeared before her, his fist streaking toward her face. It wasn't his full strength, far from it, but enough to hurt if it landed. Allison's instincts flared. Her hands shot up just in time, and the air before her twisted into a shimmering emerald barrier. Jacob's fist slammed into the compressed wind with a muffled thud, the force rippling outward. His punch deflected harmlessly past her cheek, rustling her hair and sending her stumbling back. Jacob grinned. A barrier that can deflect attacks. That's good. He pivoted, sweeping low for her legs. Allison's eyes widened, and in desperation she thrust her palms downward. A repulsive gust burst outward in a shockwave, blasting leaves and dirt in every direction. The power didn't hurt him, but it threw off his balance, forcing him to hop back. Nice. Jacob praised, steadying himself. But next time, focus all the force on your attacker instead of scattering it around. That'll hit harder. Allison caught her breath and gave a sheepish smile. I didn't even know what I was doing, I just reacted instinctively. You'll learn control with training. Now, your turn. Attack me. She nodded, determination flashing in her green eyes. Swinging her arm in a wide arc, she unleashed a cutting gust. A pale green crescent of compressed air tore forward but veered off course, slicing clean through a sapling beside Jacob instead of him. Jacob smirked. That didn't even come close to hitting me, love. Allison scratched her cheek, embarrassed. Well, it's my first time. Now let's try something else. She clenched her fists and thrust them outward. A concentrated blast of wind roared straight toward his chest. Jacob crossed his arms in defense, and the impact made him take a step back, dust scattering under his feet. Jacob raised his hand, fire sparking to life in his palm. That was a little impressive. Now, let's see if you can handle this. Flames swirled, condensing into a sphere the size of a basketball. With a sharp flick, he hurled it at Allison. Allison saw the ball of fire heading toward her fast and was a little scared. Fear clawed at her instincts to dodge, but she held her ground. She focused on the air in front of the fire, and poured her energy into creating a strong wind barrier. The fire hit the wall of wind. Instead of piercing through, the swirling winds shredded it apart, scattering embers harmlessly into the air until nothing but sparks faded in the night. Jacob grinned. Not bad. But I doubt that barrier could withstand a stronger fire attack. Allison nodded. I know. Wind feeds fire and make it stronger. The only reason the barrier worked this time was because your attack was weak. Then a sly smile tugged at her lips. She spread her arms wide, wind rushing at her command. Leaves, dirt, and moss lifted violently from the forest floor, whirling into a churning dust storm that engulfed the clearing. Visibility dropped to zero, and Allison moved around, trying to hide in the dust storm she created. Jacob stood still, his senses immediately heightening. He looked around but couldn't see her, the world around him was chaos, and dirt stung his eyes. He listened, his draconic hearing filtering through the rustle of leaves and dirt, and heard her heartbeat. He turned toward the sound. Then, a new sound rose, a loud, constant, whistling gust of wind she sent weaving and screaming through the branches of the trees around them. It was a shrieking gale, perfectly masking the rhythm of her heartbeat. Jacob's eyes glowed golden, shifting to his draconic sight. He tried to find Allison by detecting her heat signature, but the dust and leaves flying around blocked and scattered the infrared radiation, preventing him from seeing through the storm to any heat sources. He let out a quiet breath. Smart, she blocked both my hearing and my sight. High above, Allison perched on a thick branch she had reached by making herself lighter with a cushion of air. Her chest rose and fell heavily. Her energy was draining fast from keeping the storm alive. She raised a hand, focusing. She compressed the wind above her palm, refined it, and shaped it with precision. A single, slender, shimmering arrow of solid wind took form, humming with power. She used the wind to find Jacob's location, took aim, and let the wind arrow fly. It shot through the dusty air like a green comet. Jacob sensed the concentrated energy and turned, his hand flashing up. A small, concentrated fireball, no larger than an apple, shot from his palm to meet it. The two projectiles collided in a blinding flash, scattering into nothing. Allison didn't wait. She leapt, the wind softening her landing, and rolled behind another giant tree. Gritting her teeth, she envisioned not one, but 3 arrows this time. She swept her hands forward, and the wind arrows flew toward Jacob from her new position. This time, Jacob didn't use a small fireball. He turned to the source of the attack, took a deep breath, and unleashed a controlled fire breath. The cone of flame engulfed the arrows, vaporizing them into harmless puffs of agitated air. The dust storm dissipated after Allison stopped controlling it, and Allison knew she was exposed. She jumped out from behind the tree and, with a cry of effort, swung her hand in a precise arc. A sharp wind slash flew horizontally at Jacob's torso. He didn't block it, he simply leaned back, the blade whistling past his chest to slice clean through a thick tree trunk behind him. The top of the tree groaned and began to topple. Jacob straightened, a smirk tugging at his lips. Not bad. Allison smiled proudly and waved both hands rapidly, sending a volley of wind slashes toward him. They were stronger this time, faster, sharper, more precise than before. Jacob didn't dodge. He stood his ground, and as the first slash reached him, he simply threw a punch. His fist met the concentrated air head-on and shattered it into a harmless breeze. He did it again, and again, punching through her attacks like they were made of fragile glass, each impact sounding like a small thunderclap. Jacob smiled. I like what you did with that dust storm. Blocking both my hearing and sight, that was clever. Allison was panting. But, you still blocked every attack, even when you couldn't see me. Jacob's expression was calm, almost amused. If I couldn't even do that, I'd be ashamed to call myself a dragon. Her brows furrowed. But how did you do it? I'm very sensitive to energy, so the moment you started creating your wind arrow, I sensed your location. I can also feel danger. Jacob replied. And I could have used electricity to track your location. Don't forget, I have more than just eyes and ears. Allison tilted her head, whispering. I see. Jacob's gaze softened. But I'm proud of you though. You only became a fairy today, and yet the strength you showed just now is enough to take down a weak alpha werewolf. And if you could create a dust storm like you just did, trapping a pack of werewolves inside it and blocking their senses, you could take on an alpha and his whole pack on your own, with ranged attacks, of course. Although you're strong physically and have rapid healing, the last thing a creature like you should do is short-range combat. A proud smile spread across Allison's face. I could just use my wind slashes and kill a werewolf, even an alpha like Peter. His skin isn't as tough as yours, right? Jacob's eyes narrowed. Don't get cocky. Peter isn't a weak alpha. In his werewolf form, that slash you just used to cut a tree in half would do little damage to him, if you can hit him, that is. He's fast, if you let him close the distance, you'll be in real trouble. Physically, you're not on his level at all. Allison frowned. But I already had beta-level strength before I became a fairy, and now that I'm a fairy I've become even stronger. I thought I was as strong as an alpha werewolf now. Jacob shook his head. Not even close. When a creature becomes an alpha, whether it's a werewolf or anything else, their entire being evolves. They don't just get stronger, they become more connected to their supernatural side. That makes them far harder to kill. When I said you could take down a weak alpha, I meant a really weak one. And even then, it would take you a lot of effort to kill him, unless you poison him, of course. Allison crossed her arms, but there was a spark of defiance in her eyes. Maybe. But this is just me after a few hours as a fairy. Once I train, once I master my wind and electricity, I'm sure I'll be able to beat a strong alpha werewolf. Her voice softened as curiosity crept in. By the way, how does a fairy become an alpha? Jacob thought for a moment before answering. Probably by gaining a deep understanding of your element. Once that happens, the transformation comes naturally. Allison nodded, her expression thoughtful. I see. Jacob said. Now, can you try making a real wind attack? Something powerful. Allison tilted her head. Like what? A giant spinning arrow. Jacob replied. I can do it with my fire ability to show you if you want, but we are in a forest and I'd rather not start a fire and burn it down. Allison said. You don't need to show me. I think I can do it. She turned toward some huge boulders. She raised both hands above her head, palms facing each other as if cradling an invisible sphere. She closed her eyes, shutting out everything but the feel of the wind. It started as a whisper, a gentle breeze that coiled around her arms, stirring her green hair. Then it grew. The air between her palms began to shimmer with an intense, vibrant green light, pulling in more and more of the surrounding wind. Jacob watched, his draconic eyes seeing not just the light, but the currents of power she was desperately trying to bind together. He saw the strain on her face, the slight tremble in her arms. Allison's world narrowed to the vortex between her hands. Every ounce of her will, every bit of her remaining energy, she poured into constructing the arrow. She imagined it, long, sleek, and deadly. She forced it to spin, compressing the raging winds tighter and tighter, layering them into a corkscrew pattern. A sharp, throbbing pain began to bloom behind her eyes, a warning sign of her energy being drained too fast. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps, but she didn't stop. She pushed past the pain, past the exhaustion. With a final cry of effort, the weapon completed itself. It hovered above her hands, a magnificent and terrifying arrow of solidified, screaming wind. She screamed, thrusting her hands forward. The giant spinning arrow launched. It didn't fly so much as devour the space between her and the boulders. The moment it left her hands, the energy sustaining it vanished from her body. The vibrant green light around her snuffed out. She was panting, her head pounding, her body utterly spent as she shifted back to her human form. She collapsed and was about to hit the ground. Jacob surged forward, catching her before she hit the ground, cradling her against his chest. The arrow struck the first boulder. There was no explosion, not at first. There was a piercing shriek of stone being violently drilled. The arrow didn't even slow down. It passed through the first boulder, splitting it apart, and tore through the second one, exploding it from the inside out, and impacted the third, larger than the others. It drilled into its heart before the immense power finally destabilized, unleashing its remaining energy, and causing a loud explosion. The ground quaked, a shockwave ripping through the trees, scattering leaves like a hurricane. Dust and rubble filled the clearing. Jacob shielded Allison with his body, to protect her weakened body from the explosion. When the chaos faded, silence returned. The cluster of boulders was gone. In its place was a huge crater filled with rubble. Jacob looked at Allison in his arms, who was still watching the crater with wide eyes, not believing she just did that. All right, I take it back. This attack could definitely kill Peter. Allison managed a weak laugh, still panting. Maybe, but I doubt he'll just stand still while I finish making it. Jacob said. All right, it's time we get out of here. Allison groaned, slumping against him. You'll have to carry me. I have no energy left, I can't even stand. Jacob gave a small smile. Then how about we eat first? Food might help you regain some energy. Her eyes lit up faintly despite her exhaustion. Okay, I wouldn't say no to food. Honestly, even though we just had dinner, I feel like I could eat a cow right now. Jacob carried her to a fallen tree, settling her onto the mossy trunk. With a flick of his hand, he pulled a small collapsible table from his pocket dimension, a reward from one of his daily sign-ins. A moment later, he set down burgers, fries, and cans of Coke. They ate quietly under the stars. When they finished, Jacob stowed everything away, then crouched in front of her. Climb on, he said. Allison wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her cheek against him. He rose easily, her weight nothing to him, and started walking toward the direction of her home. She closed her eyes, a small, tired smile tugging at her lips, and within moments, her breathing slowed, her body relaxing as she drifted into light sleep. 15 minutes later, the silence of the woods shattered. Gunfire echoed through the night, sharp and unmistakable. Jacob froze mid-step, his eyes narrowing. His supernatural hearing locked onto the direction instantly. Without a word, he shifted course, breaking into a run. Allison stirred awake at the sudden movement, blinking. Jay, what's happening? I don't know. Jacob answered. I heard gunshots and followed the sound. We're about to arrive. Chapter 48. Jacob and Allison's First Blood PT-1. Jacob, with Allison on his back, ran toward the sound of the gunfire. He was moving with a predator's silence through the forest. As they got closer, the gunfire grew louder, punctuated by screams of terror and a deep, enraged roar that was anything but animal. It was a sound of pure, primal fury. They reached a ridge overlooking a small clearing. A campfire cast a flickering, hellish light on a scene of carnage. Tents were shredded. The earth was dyed red with blood. The scene was nightmare fuel. A black bear, massive and unnatural, stood on its hind legs. Its eyes burned with a malevolent crimson light. It swiped a paw the size of a dinner plate at a man who raised his rifle as a shield. The blow didn't just knock him down, it tore him in half. His torso landed yards from his legs, his intestines unfurling in a slick, dark coil onto the forest floor. Allison's hand flew to her mouth, a choked gasp escaping her lips. Another foolish man emptied his assault rifle into the bear's side. Blood and fur flew, and the bear roared in pain but didn't stop or run away. Instead it turned and lunged at the man, its jaws closing around the man's head. The man screamed, and the bear shook its head violently and tore the man's head off, throwing it aside to the ground. Another man was on the ground near the angry bear, trying to crawl away, one hand clutching his stomach, the other dragging him through the dirt. A glistening rope of his own viscera trailed behind him like a grotesque leash. He made it 10 feet before the bear caught up with him and with its giant paw crushed the man's head, making his brain scatter around. The rest of the men rained bullets on the bear. Its dark fur was blood-soaked from a dozen wounds, but even so, the bullets didn't do too much damage to it, and its wounds were healing with an unnatural, visible speed. Allison was covering her mouth with her hand, her voice weak. Put me down. I feel like I'm about to vomit. Jacob gently lowered her. She turned, stumbled a few steps away, and retched violently into the bushes, her body convulsing. She wiped her mouth with a trembling hand, her face pale as moonlight. She turned back to him, her eyes wide with horror and a desperate need for justice. Go help them, she pleaded, grabbing his arm. Help who? Jacob's voice was low, his gaze still fixed on the clearing, analytical and cold. The men, of course. Allison said, gesturing at the slaughter. Before that thing kills them all. Jacob slowly shook his head. Allison, use your fairy eyes. Look behind those tents. Tell me what you see. Confused, Allison blinked. A soft, ethereal green light emanated from her eyes, cutting through the darkness and the deceptive shadows cast by the fire. She scanned past the bloodshed, past the roaring bear and the scared men, to the edge of the clearing. There, hitched to a large truck, was a heavy iron cage. And inside, huddled together in terror, were two small children. Her blood ran cold. What's going on? She whispered, the horror in her voice shifting from revulsion to a deeper, more righteous anger. I think the men are the bad guys. Jacob murmured. That bear is a shapeshifter. A woman. And those kids in the cage are her kids. I can tell by their scent. I think the men took her children. Allison stared, piecing things together. The cage. The armed men. The mother's berserker rage. So the men are hunters. Is this what hunters do? I don't know if they're hunters or not. Jacob said, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. But let's find out. There's one of them hiding over there. He pointed to the far side of the clearing. Behind that huge tree. He's the smart one. He's using a high-caliber rifle, waiting for a clean shot. Let's catch him and read his memories. He turned and offered his back. Get on. Allison shook her head. It's okay. I can't make another giant wind arrow yet, but my strength is back. I can use my physical strength and some weak wind attacks. Jacob gave a sharp nod, his golden eyes glinting in the dark. Okay. Stay close to me. They sneaked toward the man. The man was a silhouette against a thick tree, his body tensed, his eye pressed firmly against the scope of his high-powered rifle. He was muttering to himself. Come on, turn your head, you bitch, just a little more. He never saw them coming. Jacob's hand shot out and clamped around the back of the man's neck, lifting him off the ground like a kitten. The man let out a strangled yelp of surprise and terror, but the sound was swallowed by the gunfire and the bear's enraged roars from the clearing. Allison watched, her heart hammering against her chest. How are you going to read his memories? She whispered. I have never read anyone's memories before. Jacob admitted. I don't even know if I can. But werewolves and other shifters can do it by inserting their claws into the base of the skull. I'm going to try. He shook the man slightly. I'm not sure what will happen to you after this, but I don't feel sorry about it. You don't look like a good person. Before the man could scream again, Jacob's free hand shifted. His fingernails elongated into wicked, obsidian black claws. With a swift, brutal motion, he drove the tips into the back of the man's neck. The man stiffened, a silent, gaping scream on his face. His eyes rolled back into his head, showing the whites. Jacob closed his own eyes, his brow furrowed in concentration, and he managed to read the man's memories. Jacob saw in the man's memories that the group was a hunter group that called themselves the Harvesters. They traveled the country, tracking supernatural creatures. Jacob saw a werewolf begging them for his life before they opened his throat and began butchering him for parts on a bloody plastic sheet. A young dryad, her connection to her tree severed, sold weeping to a shadowy buyer. A beautiful selkie, a mermaid-like shifter, that was repeatedly raped by the very men in this clearing before she was finally killed and processed. Jacob saw hidden auctions that sell anything supernatural, from organs to live creatures. He saw the clinical discussion of the man and his group about which organs fetched the highest price. He saw them raping beautiful shapeshifters before killing them or selling them alive. And he saw how they hunted kids and even babies for customers who ordered them. Finally, Jacob saw this mission. He saw them staking out the werebear's house, waiting until she left her home. Then they murdered her human husband, shot him in the head while he was trying to protect his children. Then they captured her 2 crying children, threw them into the iron cage like luggage, and drove to Beacon Hills, thinking they were far enough and decided to rest in the Beacon Hills Preserve. Jacob ripped his claws out and dropped the man. The man collapsed to the ground, twitching and convulsing, drool leaking from his open mouth. Anger and pure rage twisted Jacob's features. Allison saw the absolute fury in his eyes. Before she could finish, Jacob lifted his foot and brought it down on the convulsing man's head. There was a sickening, wet crunch, and the man's head exploded like a watermelon. Allison spun around and vomited again. She wiped her mouth with a trembling hand, shock in her eyes. She turned back to him, her voice a shaky whisper. Why did you kill him? Jacob turned to look at her, his face still a mask of primordial rage. I'm sorry you saw that. But that man and his friends, they are real beasts. What I saw in his memories, Allison, terrible stuff. Unspeakable. I can show you through our telepathic link, but you have to brace yourself. It's very bad. But you need to see it. You need to know the reality of our world. Scared but resolved, Allison nodded. Show me. Jacob stepped closer, the fury in his eyes softening into a grim sorrow. He placed his forehead against hers, and the memories flooded into her mind. She saw it all. The slaughterhouse. The victim's despair. The heinous, unspeakable crimes committed by the group that calls themselves the Harvesters. First came the shock, cold and numbing. Then a disgust so profound it made her stomach clench again. And finally, rising like a tidal wave, a rage so pure unlike anything she felt before. Her body started shaking. She understood why Jacob was angry and why he killed the man. Jacob broke the connection, looking into her no-hardened eyes. Do you understand why I killed him? Allison's voice was cold, laced with a fury that mirrored his own. I understand. Scum like him and his group don't deserve to live. So what are we going to do with the rest of them? Jacob's glowing eyes turned toward the clearing, where the werebear mother was still fighting, though she was slowing, her healing factor struggling to keep up with the barrage of bullets. I'll kill them all, of course. He said, his voice flat and final. Just then, one of the surviving men, seeing his comrades falling, made a desperate dash for the cage. He leveled his pistol point blank at the 2 terrified children inside. Hey, bitch! He screamed, his voice cracking with panic. Stop! The forest air, thick with the smell of blood and gunpowder, seemed to freeze. The werebear's massive form shuddered, and she stopped. She looked at the man pointing his gun at her children, rage and anger in her eyes, but she didn't dare to move. The leader of the group was a fat man. He was standing a little far from the battlefield, scared of the werebear and ready to ditch his group and run away at any time. But seeing the werebear stopped and didn't dare to move, he laughed and said, Now, if you don't want your children to die, shift back to human form. The rage in her red eyes warring with a mother's primal fear, she sighed and shifted. Her huge bare form shrank, her fur receding, her body reshaping until a naked, tall, beautiful brunette woman stood in the clearing. She was covered in blood and dirt, her body heaving with ragged breaths, her red eyes fixed on the gun pointed at her children. The fat leader laughed with a disgusting sound. See, boys. Even animals know what's good for them. He didn't even care about his dead men, or even glance at their torn remains. His surviving lackeys, emboldened now that the immediate threat was gone, let out crude whistles and jeers. The man near the cage, still aiming at the children, licked his lips. Boss, let me enjoy her after you. Sure thing. The fat man chuckled, his piggish eyes roaming over the woman's naked body. But looking at that, you'll be waiting a few hours. He started walking toward her, a swagger in his step. I'm not even gonna poison you or tie you up, sweetheart. I want you to serve me willingly while your kids watch. Makes it more fun. Chapter 49. Jacob and Allison's First Blood PT2. Jacob and Allison watched the scene from the shadows in anger as the hunters threatened the woman with her children's lives. Allison's hands clenched into fists so tight her nails bit into her palms. What a bunch of scum. She hissed, her voice trembling with fury. All right. Jacob's voice was low. You stay here. I'm going to take care of them, starting with the guy pointing the gun at the children. Allison hesitated for only a second, her eyes locking onto the sniper rifle lying next to the headless corpse. A grim resolve settled over her. No, she said, her voice steadier now. Leave him to me. Jacob said. No, I don't want you going out there. They have guns, and you're not back at your full strength yet. I'm not going to show myself. She said, already moving to pick up the heavy rifle. The metal was cold and familiar in her hands. My dad taught me how to shoot all kinds of guns. It's been 2 years, but from this distance, I'm sure I can blow his head off. She worked by feel, her fairy-enhanced eyes checking the chamber and the scope in the dim light. The memory of her father's patient coaching pushed back the nausea and fear. Jacob watched her for a tense moment, then said, all right, I'm counting on you. Stay here after you kill him, and don't come out until I've killed all of them. Allison nodded, bringing the rifle up to her shoulder and settling into a prone position, using a fallen log for support. She leaned forward, her eye finding the scope. The world narrowed to a circle of glass and crosshairs. She felt Jacob getting close to her, then a soft brush of his lips against her temple. Then he started walking toward the clearing. Be careful, she whispered, her focus never leaving the scope. You too, he said. In the clearing, the fat man was steps away from the werebear woman, an obscene smile on his face. The man who was pointing his gun at the children was watching with a smirk, his posture relaxed. Jacob shifted. His claws extended. Black scales covered his entire body except his face and hands. He didn't let his horns appear. Then he walked out from the darkness and walked toward the werebear woman, holding a bathrobe he took from his pocket dimension. The fat man and his thugs stared, weapons half-raised, at the teen shapeshifter with glowing golden eyes emerging from the tree line. Stop right there, you little shit. The fat man's voice was a gravelly threat. Or we will shoot you. Jacob didn't care about them. He just kept walking toward the woman. While the hunters didn't feel anything from Jacob, the woman, on the other hand, was trembling. She felt fear when she looked at Jacob, a primal fear that made her forget all her rage. The fat man turned to one of his goons and said, shoot him. The man shot Jacob in the chest, but the bullet hit Jacob's chest like hitting iron. Sparks flew as the bullet shattered when it penetrated Jacob's hoodie and hit his dragon scales underneath. Jacob didn't even feel the bullet. He looked at the man and raised his hand, pointing a finger at the man. Then a small ball of lightning appeared at the tip of Jacob's finger and shot faster than a bullet toward the man, penetrating his head and making a burned hole in his forehead, dropping him dead. Jacob's glowing eyes locked onto the fat man. His voice was a low, chilling calm. Be patient. I will deal with you soon. The man saw the bullet didn't even wound Jacob and how Jacob killed his man. He took an involuntary step back, his confidence shattering. Jacob arrived next to the woman, offering her the bathrobe. Here, cover yourself. The woman flinched and took a step away from Jacob in fear. Jacob threw the bathrobe at her. Don't be scared of me. I mean you no harm. Seeing Jacob helping the woman, the fat guy stopped trembling and smirked. But he wasn't confident of catching Jacob, he just wanted him to leave. He said, kid, leave or I will kill her kids. Allison took a deep, steadying breath, let half of it out, and held it. Her finger settled on the trigger. Squeeze, don't pull. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. The crosshairs found their mark, centering on the gunman's head. She squeezed. The sound of the rifle was deafening in the relative quiet forest, like a sharp, violent thunderclap that ripped through the night. The gunman's head snapped backward. 1 second he was standing, the next, he was collapsing like a sack of meat, his body slumping against the iron cage before sliding to the ground, leaving a dark smear on the metal. The sound of the shot froze everyone in the clearing. The fat man's head turned slowly, his smug smirk shattering into confusion, then raw terror, as he stared at his lifeless man slumped against the cage. His remaining men spun around, weapons raised, searching frantically for the new threat. Just then, Jacob attacked. The first hunter died before he could even turn his rifle around, his throat torn out by a casual swipe of a claw. The second managed to get off a wild, panicked burst of automatic fire that ricocheted harmlessly off Jacob's scaled forearm before Jacob grabbed his head and twisted. The sickening sound of snapping bone echoed in the clearing. Chaos erupted. But it was a short-lived chaos. The men weren't hunters anymore. They were prey and Jacob was the hunter, and he was moving too fast for them to even react. There were 8 remaining men. Jacob ripped the heads off 2 of them, tore 3 clean in half, and plucked the beating hearts from 2 others, leaving only the fat man alive. Jacob walked toward him, and the man started backing away in fear while emptying his gun into Jacob's chest. But the bullets did nothing. One struck Jacob's forehead, it left only a fading red mark that vanished in less than a second. The fat man fell to the ground, scrambling backward through the dirt in fear. What kind of monster are you? Jacob caught up to him and without a word inserted his claws into the back of the man's neck and started reading his memories. When he was done, he threw the man at the woman's feet and said, "He is all yours." The man, despite Jacob reading his memories, didn't lose consciousness or anything. Although he was dizzy and confused from the mental violation, he was still sane. The woman looked at Jacob, her voice steady but cold. "Can you hold this for me, please?" She tossed the bathrobe back to him. "I don't want to ruin it with this pig's blood." Jacob caught the robe and watched as the woman walked to the man and with her claws started peeling his skin and killing him slowly while he begged for mercy and screamed like a pig. After the woman was done, she went to the water tank the hunters were using and took a shower. She came back to Jacob, took the robe, and wore it, then went to the cage. She freed her children, pulling them into a tight hug before breaking down into heavy, wrenching sobs. Allison walked from her hidden place and came to Jacob's side. "What did you see in that man's memories?" Jacob said. "More horrible things." Allison sighed. "I don't think I can sleep tonight. I wish I could spend the night with you." Jacob said. "Me too. I don't feel like spending the night alone, after all I just did and saw. I might have looked cruel killing those guys, but now that my rage is gone, I feel sick and kind of disgusted with myself right now." "I know how you feel." Allison whispered. "I killed a man too. How about we go to Lydia and spend the night with her? You can tell your parents that you're at Lydia's house and they wouldn't say anything." Jacob suggested. "Yes, we can do that." Allison said softly. "I really don't want to spend the night alone in my room." Jacob said. "All right. Let me get rid of these bodies first, then we'll go." The woman approached with her children. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't want to imagine what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." "You're welcome," Jacob replied. "Take one of their cars and leave with your kids." The woman hesitated, then asked. "Can I ask, what kind of creature are you? I've never felt fear like I felt when you appeared." Jacob shook his head. "I can't tell you that. It wouldn't do any of us any good." She nodded, understanding. "I see. Thank you again for your help, both of you." Jacob nodded at her, and the woman turned around, loaded her children into a truck, and drove away, leaving the nightmare behind. Jacob looked at Allison. "Stay here. I'm going to burn the bodies." Allison nodded, and Jacob gathered all the bodies together. After taking a bank card and another card from the fat man, he burned the bodies, the cars, the tents, and everything else to ash, except the guns, of course. He stored those in his pocket dimension. He took off his clothes and burned them too, took a quick shower with some water from his pocket dimension, and changed into new clothes. After that, Allison and Jacob left the forest using their superspeed and headed toward Lydia's house. Chapter 50. A Sleepless Night. After arriving at Lydia's house, Jacob climbed through the window, after giving Lydia a quick telepathic warning, while Allison knocked on the front door. Natalie, Lydia's mom, opened it with a warm smile. "Allison, are you here for Lydia?" "Good evening," Allison said, smiling politely. "Yes, I'm here for a sleepover. I hope you don't mind." "Of course not," Natalie replied. "Come on in. Lydia's upstairs in her room." Allison thanked her and headed upstairs. When she opened Lydia's door, she found Jacob and Lydia kissing. Rolling her eyes, she pulled out her phone and called her mom, letting her know she was spending the night at Lydia's. As expected, Victoria asked to speak with Natalie, just to confirm. Allison went back downstairs, handed the phone over, then returned once the moms had spoken. Inside Lydia's room, Jacob was stretched out on the bed. "Lydia, lock the door," he said, his voice low. "I don't want your mom walking in and finding me here. I really don't want any drama tonight. My mom doesn't barge into my room." Lydia replied with a shrug. "But better safe than sorry, I guess." She got up and locked the door. A few minutes later, Allison and Lydia were lying on either side of Jacob, both of them hugging him. Lydia glanced between them. So, are you two going to tell me what's going on? Jacob said. Believe me, Lydia, you don't want to know. I do. She insisted, leaning closer. Tell me. Jacob sighed. Are you sure? I killed some people tonight. Lydia sat up straight. What? I killed a man too. Allison added quietly. Lydia blinked, her shock only growing. Now I really want to know. Jacob exhaled heavily. As you wish. But don't blame me if you can't sleep afterward. He pressed his forehead to hers, sharing everything through their telepathic link. The fight in the woods, the shape-shifting bear, the kids in the cage, the harvesters, crimes. When he pulled away, Lydia's face was pale. She hugged him tightly, shivering. I can't believe people would do such horrible things for money. I'm glad you helped that woman, and I'm glad you killed those bastards. But, she shuddered. I don't think I'll be able to sleep now. Allison said softly. Jay warned you, but you wouldn't listen. I needed to see it. Lydia said firmly, her voice trembling but resolute. I needed to understand why you two killed people. And, you should have taken me with you. Even if I couldn't help, don't leave me out of things. Jacob shook his head. It wasn't planned. We were just passing by, then heard gunshots. That's how it happened. Lydia frowned. And what were you doing in the woods anyway? Oh, and Allison, why were your eyes glowing green in Jacob's memories? Allison smiled faintly. That's because I'm not just human anymore. I'm something called a wind fairy. Lydia said. What? How did that happen? Allison smirked. Jay turned me into one. Lydia asked. How? Allison tilted her head. Should I tell her, or leave it as a surprise? Jacob gave a small shrug. Tell her. She'll find out in a few days anyway. Allison raised a brow. A few days. Don't you plan to do it with her tomorrow? Jacob said. Probably not. I'm not in the mood. Not for at least a day or two. Lydia blinked. Wait, did you two finally sleep together? Allison said. Yes, we did. Lydia rolled across Jacob and leaned in close to Allison, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Tell me everything. There's nothing to tell. Allison replied. We just did it. Lydia narrowed her eyes. Was he good? I mean, we are going to spend the rest of our lives with him, so please, tell me he is good. A slow smile spread across Allison's face. He's very good. I'm still numb down there. Lydia gasped dramatically. Then tell me details. Don't be shy. There really isn't much more to say. Allison replied. We went back to the mansion, and we were at it for hours straight. I had to stop because I literally couldn't keep going. You're boring. I need details. Lydia pouted. Allison smirked. I don't remember any details. I was too busy enjoying myself. Fine. Then at least tell me how he turned you into a fairy. Allison said. Jay told me that when a woman becomes his mate, he can pass on a bloodline to her. 3 bloodlines chose me, vampire, elf, and wind fairy. I chose the fairy. And now, she smiled. I'm really strong. She shifted into her fairy form, and told Lydia about her powers. Lydia's eyes widened. That's amazing. Then she turned to Jacob, her excitement sparking. Can I have powers like hers? Jacob shook his head. You'll definitely have powers, but not like hers. Then what kind will I get? She pressed. I don't know. Jacob admitted. We'll find out after we sleep together. Lydia huffed but nodded. Fine. Her gaze shifted, and she noticed the ring on Allison's hand. Where is my ring? Jacob sat up slightly. I was going to give you one after but, he pulled a spatial ring from his pocket dimension, identical to Allison's, and held it out. Here. This is yours. Lydia crossed her arms. Well, you can keep it until we actually do it. Allison rolled her eyes. If you're expecting some romantic gesture or a proposal, forget it. Jay is an unromantic idiot. And believe me, you really want to take that ring from him. Is it magical? Lydia asked curiously. Yes. Allison said. Lydia slipped it on and studied it. It's beautiful, but I don't feel anything. Drop a little blood on it. Jacob instructed. She pricked her finger, and the moment her blood touched the ring, it bonded with her. Knowledge of its abilities flooded her mind. Her face lit up, and without hesitation, she jumped on top of Jacob, kissing him hard. I want to do it with you right now. Jacob gently pushed her back to the side. His expression was haunted. Not tonight. I can still hear the screams of the people I killed. I can still smell their fear, their blood, when I was tearing them apart. Lydia stroked his cheek. Then let's do it to distract you from thinking about all that. Jacob shook his head. No. I don't trust myself right now. I might get violent, and besides, he glanced at Allison. Allison is here. It's not happening tonight. With that, he rolled Lydia over to Allison's side and closed his eyes. Now you two talk. I want to get some sleep. He closed his eyes, letting Lydia and Allison whisper to each other. Sleep, however, wouldn't come. I was so happy being in this new world. He thought. But I didn't really consider that I'd have to kill people. Although I killed that monster in the woods before, but that was different. The worst part is that I killed those people tonight without mercy, and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit. If not for the fact that I felt joy in killing them only because they were bad people, I would be freaking out right now. He let out a long sigh. Well, I just have to get used to it and make sure I don't turn into a murdering maniac. I plan to go to that auction in Las Vegas on Saturday, the one I saw in the Fat Man's Memories, and destroy it. I'll take the money from the people who attend the auction and the ones who organize it, so I'll probably have to kill some more people. But for now, I should try to sleep. After a while, exhaustion claimed him. But around 4 a.m., Jacob jolted awake, sweat dampening his forehead. He had dreamed of losing control, of killing Styles and Scott with his claws. He turned his head left and right. Lydia and Allison were curled against him on either side, arms draped over his chest, breathing softly. He shook his head with a weary sigh. Whispering to Allison, "You can't sleep." One of Allison's eyes cracked open. "I slept," she whispered. "But I woke up after having a nightmare that my parents were evil hunters like the ones we met tonight." "Don't worry. They're not." "I know," Allison said. "But I still couldn't go back to sleep. You know we're going to kill more bad people in the future, right?" Jacob asked gently. Allison nodded. "I know. And I won't hesitate when the time comes." Jacob kissed the top of her head. "That's my girl. And let's make this deal. Tonight is the only night we lose sleep over killing scumbags. This is our reality now. We need to accept it sooner rather than later." "Deal," Allison said firmly. "We shouldn't waste sympathy on monsters like them." Jacob smirked. "I'm in the mood again. Want to sneak into Lydia's bathroom." Allison snorted and pinched his side. "Go back to sleep, you pervert." He chuckled softly, and soon her breathing evened out as she drifted back to sleep. Jacob wrapped his arms tighter around both girls and finally managed to slip back into slumber too. Early in the morning, a knock sounded on Lydia's door. "Girls, wake up, you'll be late for school," Natalie called. Jacob stirred first, nudging Lydia and Allison awake. "Lydia, are you awake?" Natalie asked again through the door. Lydia rubbed her eyes and answered sleepily. "Yes, Mom, we're up. I made you breakfast. I'm heading to work. Love you." "Love you too, Mom," Lydia called back. Moments later, they heard Natalie leave the house, the sound of her car fading into the distance. Jacob kissed both girls, and got out of bed. "All right, girls, I need to head home. And I'm not coming to school today." Allison yawned and stretched. "Why not? I need to be at the mansion." Jacob explained. "That tin can at home ordered a bunch of materials that will arrive today. I can't let him go outside to receive them himself. He'd probably scare the delivery guy half to death." Lydia smirked and leaned against him. "Remember, I'm coming over after school. So you better be ready to satisfy me. And don't even think about saying you're not in the mood." Jacob chuckled, pulled her close, and kissed her deeply before letting go. "Trust me, I'll be more than ready." Lydia rolled her eyes with a smile and disappeared into the bathroom. Allison, still lounging in bed, glanced at Jacob. "Why don't you have breakfast with us before you go?" Jacob shrugged. "Sure." The two of them went downstairs. Allison looked at the modest breakfast Natalie had left on the table and said, "Do you have any baked goods in that pocket dimension of yours?" Jacob grinned. "I've got plenty." "Then take some out. This breakfast is nice, but it's too little." Jacob pulled out a variety of baked goods, croissants, muffins, cookies, brownies, cinnamon rolls, along with juice. By the time Lydia came down, the table was overflowing. The three of them sat together, laughing and eating until they were satisfied. Afterward, they left Lydia's house. The girls drove toward Allison's, while Jacob split off, running at supernatural speed back to his mansion. At Allison's house, she hesitated before stepping out of the car. Her eyes lingered on the front door. "I don't know if my parents set up a new mountain ash barrier or not. I'm nervous." Lydia leaned toward her from the driver's seat. "You'll be fine, right?" They won't hurt you, even if they find out you're a supernatural creature. Of course not. Allison said quickly. They'd never hurt me. I just don't want them to know yet. Then good luck. Lydia said softly. Allison took a deep breath, walked to her house, and carefully opened the front door. She stepped inside, nothing. There was no barrier. Relief washed over her. She turned back toward Lydia, gave her a thumbs up, and said telepathically. There's no barrier. Wait for me to change my clothes and grab my bag, then I'll be right back. She reached out telepathically to Jacob as well. Jay, I just got home. No barrier. Jacob responded. Oh, right, I forgot about that. That's one less problem, I guess. Allison smiled faintly. Alright, talk to you later. To be continued, smile. If you like this story and want to support me, please go to patreon.com/ayubams926.